got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There is Max Papis in the Ferrari. As great a race as Ferrari has ever won.
The steering wheel for me has always been a sensitive spot. You know, there's a whole experience there that we're all trying to refine. Max Pappas, he asked me one day, he said, what can I do with a wheel? I said, well, with the new.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
The closing of a 13-race stretch that tested it all means the commencement of one arduous journey that begins with a venue in the dawn of its new generation, with 16 drivers vying for a championship. It's the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway, where we bring in this new edition of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs, race 14 of this 2024 season. And it is where we welcome you into our coverage tonight live on VSPEED, where alongside Bradley Cooper in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, in this first race of the playoffs, Bradley, the feeling for us in the booth might just be the same, but for those 16 that will fight for a Sunoco Cup Series championship in 2024, that feeling will be very, very different as they get ready to strap into this super speedway race for 400 miles.
Yeah, Steve Stempien takes over the point here with Lawson Peel. Those two drivers tied for wins, and then you have everybody else that won this season up there in the top 8. So, 8 different winners. There's a lot of variety, a lot of drivers that, like Austin Reedy, who maintained the regular season points lead all the way through without a win, looking to turn that all around and get back up to the point. But Eddie Smith making an appearance as well into the top 10. A lot of drivers that we've seen all season long have success. They're all bunched up here for 16 drivers total.
Well, the first race of the playoffs, usually always known as square one. That means a bunch of these guys are mostly even on points, apart from some stage wins and playoff points to separate the top drivers from those at the bottom. For the most part, when you look at 11th through 16th, down below the cut line with Jesse Whittington dead last in that playoff fight, they all have the same amount of points as everything resets in our first playoff race of the season. It took us a long while to get here, Bradley, but as Atlanta enjoys being the debut race of these 2024 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs, it is not the first time we've seen it in this super speedway configuration, and ever since it got unveiled into the real-life version of NASCAR and on iRacing, it has been a completely different beast. This is the first time we see it in the playoffs this season. This is the third time ever we see this track featured, and it was the debut race last season. Curtis Kelly, the winner in that one, and then we had Gary Sexton get the win in the second one in the playoffs. Just the third time we see this new version of Atlanta, which has surely been a type of track that drivers are still trying to get used to.
Yeah, 2022 was the debut on the service and in real life, so this configuration is very unique still, and people are still learning it. In fact, they've had several changes to the way you enter pit road here. I'm not sure on the enforcement of that rule, but after the speeds, the way they race this place like a super speedway, the pit road had to go all the way back to turn 3 because it was so difficult to get down to speed without getting in the way. So looking to see the changes of this track still being learned as we cycle through.
Well, here in iRacing, there is no entry to pit lane in turn 3. You've got to enter on turn 4, which makes it very difficult. That is our Sunoco race trends, and we've got another one too, along with one of our playoff drivers, Colin Forrester, who is 7 points above the cut line. He's third in the standings going into tonight. He's captured the last 2 poles here at Hampton, Georgia, but he hasn't been able to replicate that when the race comes around. Has an average finish of 35th right now with 34 seconds left. He is set to capture his 3rd straight Atlanta pole, which in case would be his first pole of this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. Those were your race trends presented by Sunoco. Let's get into this Atlanta Motor Speedway just a little deeper. Of course, this track renovated in 2022, so it wasn't that long ago when NASCAR decided to revamp this track, make it a 1.5-mile super speedway, the only of its kind. Bradley, 28 degrees in the corners. It says 24, but that was the usual banking before that renovation. This track still sits at 1.54 miles and still remains with this quad oval configuration that's been around for so long. And when this track opened in 1960, I'm sure that nobody imagined this would become a super speedway, but it has, and it's the challenge that drivers will have to face tonight.
Who would have thought that only 4 degrees of banking would have turned this place up a notch? You can run it wide open for the most part. Unless you're in a really heavy draft, you might have to lift later in the run. But for the first probably 10 laps or so, these guys are going to be full throttle. And the aerodynamics on this car are very important. So it's going to take a lot to get these cars upset. You can, however, get loose on the exits of these corners, so you'll have to be careful, especially in traffic, that somebody doesn't take the air off the back end and set you out into the quad.
And it'll be a lot of fun, though, to figure out as all this goes down. Now, look at our race analysis before we go green from Atlanta Motor Speedway. We go 260 laps, a total of 400 miles around this 1.5-mile beast. Pit road speed limit at a measly 55 miles an hour because you're full throttle around this speedway, you are going way faster than that. It'll be a very tough entry, especially if we get into the realm of green flag pit stops. This isn't a track that mostly requires tires due to its smooth surface because of the repave, but 8 tire sets still available for those drivers on track. 3 green-white checkered attempts if we need them to extend this race past scheduled distance, and with the fact that we've got 260 laps, we've got to divide them into stages. Lap 60 will be the marker for stage 1, lap 160 for stage 2, and then we'll go the 100 laps the rest of the way until we get to that checkered flag. Reminder that we have never had a repeat winner here at this new version of Atlanta Motor Speedway. Will we see a new face take the checkered flag, and will it be one of those 16 playoff drivers that could make their way straight into the round of 12 with a W? Let's take you trackside and bring you the starting grid for race number 14 of the Sunoco Cup Series season, and for the 3rd consecutive time here at Atlanta in this new configuration, Colin Forrester, the fastest man on the board with a 31.245. That's his first pole this season, looking to grab win number 2 of this year's campaign. Shane Wyatt, the rookie standout in the 27. Well, he's been impressive as of late. He'll be on the outside of row number 1. Those two will be the first to see the green flag. Steven Stempien, a man on fire as of late, looking for win number 4 this year, and as he comes in as the playoff leader, has a lot of momentum on his hands. Jesse Whittington at the very other end of it, 16th and dead last on the board. He wants a good running tonight to get above that sacred cut line. Garrett Brown, the season 1 champ, inside the top 5. Brandon Branks right behind him in P6. That's row number 3. Dakota Curtis and Stephen Harlow will be those behind him, rode up in position 7 and 8. Rounding out the top 10, Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing, and Fast Bananas Austin Reedy in the number 96 Toyota Camry, looking to bring us the top 10. You'll see the rest of the order scroll at the bottom of your screen, but at the front row, Colin Forrester, Shane Wyatt, bring us playoff racing from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Under the beautiful sunset here in Hampton, Georgia. The first time we'll see this Atlanta Motor Speedway under the lights after the recent iRacing update that gave it night lights, so we'll be able to roll into the sunset, into the nighttime sky, and we'll still be super speedway racing. At the head of the field, Colin Forrester with all of the control. Steven Stempien on that bottom row. Inside will be right behind him. Shane Wyatt and company had a little bit of a struggle getting to full song after the opening lap, but so far Forrester with the best spot in the field. Dakota Curtis trying to slide his way up, making an effort on the outside, and here comes Stempien, the battle for the lead on lap 3.
I think Stempien might have stepped out a little bit too soon. I have to wait and see if the 43 can get up back to the back bumper, dropping the hammer, trying to work the outside line. And that will be prevalent as this race continues. The high line is fast in the early going, but then it gets so tight because the bottom starts washing up into you. So they'll have to be careful, and they're trying to make work of it now while they still can.
We mentioned that 8 tire sets are available for these drivers, and we know that the surface doesn't wear off tires as much as, let's say, the old configuration that we used to run at, a track surface that could really destroy the Goodyear Eagles in about 5 to 10 laps. It'll take a little longer for that phenomenon to happen with this configuration, but because you're hitting these corners at higher speeds and full throttle, you are putting a little more load on those Goodyear Racing tires, so we will see some drivers use tire sets to their advantage, and the grip levels will differentiate if we go into a specific strategy where those decide to stay out or those decide to come in. A beautiful look from the rear spoiler of Jesse Whittington's Chevrolet Camaro rolls into this playoff season for the 2nd straight time. Got in last year via a win at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. This time around, it's been much more difficult on his journey to a championship in this series. He got in by the skin of his teeth at the last race of the season, or the regular season, at Daytona International Speedway, and now in the playoffs once more looking to change the tide. And if there's any time to do it, Bradley, it would be at the playoffs. The points reset, and in some ways the mentality does as well.
Yeah, I mean, Whittington, there's quite a few drivers. Eddie Smith, the list goes on and on. Reedy is the first one that comes to mind, the driver that needs to win. You know, he had such a great season, maintain the point save, but you don't get a win. And so to solidify your round of 12, you know, just to lock yourself into that next round, it'd be nice to just get a win here. And anybody, it's kind of like Daytona or Talladega, anybody in this field can get a win. You have to survive, but anybody here can do it.
Very much a wild card, these playoffs. We'll have two super speedways, Atlanta, this being the first, Talladega being pretty much deep into the playoff territory. We'll have it in late October when we go racing there. That'll be a lot of fun to see. But Atlanta being this first journey for Jesse Whittington, who's trying to get his way in. Fourth on that outside lane, Steven Stepien leading that one as he is door-to-door with Colin Forrester. Both of them have been trading places for the race lead. Some of the usual racing we'll see here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And with the fact that this track did get revamped and reconfigured in 2022, it means that we don't have as many lanes to choose from. Bradley, remember back in the old Atlanta where you could run 3 or 4 lanes wide on the racetrack and go from the very bottom to the very top? Well, here at Atlanta, this new configuration, they shortened and narrowed the lanes that you have available to you. So it is just an overall narrow track in itself. You can go 2 and 3 wide, but 3 wide, it's kind of like Daytona. You're pushing it, and you can easily get yourself into trouble. The onboard look from Stepien as he challenges for the race lead.
Yeah, I remember the old Atlanta. In fact, we were talking about it pre-race, how, you know, the guys with the nostalgia built in, they want to go back to the old configuration. We've got Reedy on the outside, I believe, back there. That was actually really tight. Got into the wall there through the quad oval, lost a couple spots. He'll fall back.
Up there with James Kunkel, found his way to the inside. Reedy gets out of trouble, but he has really no help. Justin Winters, who was one of the faster cars in practice for Allen's Legacy Racing, giving him the push from deep in 18th place. But Reedy, who started this race just inside the top 10, having to scrap back and get at it. 3 wide action right in front, though. There is Zach Wilson, that VSPEED machine. Bradley, you have spent maybe an hour trying to put this together, from transferring it from a Chevrolet to a Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and here's Wilson in the middle, 3 wide for top 10.
Yeah, we got to show it off a little bit. A little bit of work went into that to get that Dark Horse front end to match relative to the Camaro, which is entirely different, but it still looks sharp. I'm happy with the way it turned out, and Wilson's going to do some represent here for VSPEED tonight. We were 3 wide there for a whole lap.
Hey, don't tell Zach Wilson, but, you know, you and I, Bradley, we were talking about how the Camaro is just a little bit better. Not only for paint, but just in general. It's an easier car to paint, but
for sure,
it's a little more beautiful than those on the track in the next-gen side of things. But Wilson settles into line on the high side. He grabs 14th place. He's in that fight with James Kunkel for top 15 position. That outside lane is sort of fallen off, a little bit sluggish as of late. Colin Forster with the push from Prestige Worldwide Racing. Tierra Brown going to be at the front row here, and right behind them, Kip Easley as well, running inside the top 3 in that beautiful 3-cheek Kyle Busch inspired Chevrolet Camaro. Kip Easley trying to get into a win here in the Sunoco Cup Series. Obviously not one of those playoff runners, but a guy that we've seen here and there every now and then, a driver that finished 24th in our last race at Daytona International Speedway. But the shimmers we've seen from Kip Easley have been wonderful. He was done to the bottom as rookie, now actually sophomore driver Aaron Adcock moves his way up high.
Aaron Adcock in the 17 finally works his way up there. I saw him on the bottom. He was just looking for a hole to get to the outside line. He tried it a couple different times, but the door kept getting closed, and now he gets up there. Here comes Kip Easley to shut the door again. So I think Aaron just wants clean air, and now he's going to get put 3 wide out of 4. That's not what he wanted.
And he gets into Stepien, turns him into the outside wall. A huge hit for the playoff points leader. And Steven Stepien is junk at the quad oval. First caution is out at lap 15.
Not what we wanted to see in the first race for the playoff leader. Right out of the gate, I could see that they were starting to push up the racetrack, and I knew that 3 wide was going to be a bad idea. But I didn't think it would be that bad.
and Adcock was left out of line, floated up a little high in turns 3 and 4. Stempien got down low, looked like business as usual, but we mentioned the narrowness of Atlanta in comparison to what it used to be. Well, that shows you just how narrow it can get.
And through that quad, I think I think Aaron just came down a little bit too much. That's just my opinion. But if you watch it from the blimp camera, it looked like he kind of cut the quad more than everybody else. You can watch it one more time from our gyro cam or our drone camera, but it just looks like he comes down. He was actually going to make contact with 43 as well of Dakota Curtis. Had Stempien not been hit first, I think he was going to come into the door of the 43. So it was a lot of cut there on that quad. But the car could also have been getting loose and forced him to do that as well. We could go on board in his defense, you know.
We'll see another look at it from Adcock and Stempien's perspective. There is the Ford Mustang of Aaron Adcock. Look on board as he got into Stempien here on the quad.
This happens so fast, it's hard to predict where those guys are going to go, and everybody's cutting that quad oval as well. You know, back in the old Atlanta, you weren't able to do that. There was grass there, so if you cut through there, you were going to go sideways, and now everybody cuts probably a half a lane or more across that, and the whole inside line was down below that line. So it's tough to gauge that. We see that at other tracks too, especially with tri-ovals, you know what I mean?
Yeah, with the quad ovals, Charlotte included in that too. Texas can be included in the fact that those kinks at the quad oval, they're so quick that if you're on the high side and you don't arc the car enough to get into that small corner, if you will, you could find yourself into the outside wall. Adcock was trying to assure that he wouldn't get into the safer barrier, but at the cost of getting into Steven Stempien, who comes into this race as the playoff points leader. 2,021 points to his name. He is a pretty healthy margin above that cut line, but having a crash this early, especially when there are still 2 stages to award points at, it is going to be very tough for Stempien to claw out of that hole when we get into our next playoff race in the short track at Richmond Raceway. For Aaron Adcock, someone who has shared a lot of success at the Atlanta Motor Speedway as of late, has an average finish of 6th at Atlanta with this new configuration. And it looks like his Super Speedway campaign this year has turned sour after getting 18th, an average finish of Super Speedway tracks overall this year. It's been tough for Aaron Adcock, and now with this heavy damage on his car, it will be even tougher. Let's see if we can bring in the driver of the Chevrolet Camaro, Steven Stempien, who gets involved in this incident tonight. Steven, just walk us through what happened there from your perspective, and what are your thoughts right now, 18 laps in?
I just, you know, top was moving, and, you know, Kip came up and kind of slowed everything up, and, you know, Adcock, I tried slowing up, letting him in, and it just didn't work. We kind of got forced into 3 wide. I thought I left enough room, and judging by the replay, he just didn't think 2 lanes outside of him was enough to of a barrier to, you know, to come down a little bit. I mean, that's what it looked like on my end, but it is what it is. I'm gonna retire this paint scheme because every time I run this paint scheme, I get wrecked. So, just come in, dominate Richmond next week, and win the race. I mean, that's all I got to do. So, track I'm pretty good at.
Head held high despite these circumstances. Tough break for you. It sucks to see you out so early, but Steven, we look forward to seeing you at Richmond, and best of luck.
I appreciate it, guys.
So that's Steven Stempien, unfortunately involved in our first caution of the night, lap 15. The playoff points leader out of this one early. Colin Forrester, Garrett Brown bring us back to the green flag restart from Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, he's trying to be positive about it and blame it on the paint scheme, but it's got to be frustrating when, you know, you didn't even get to turn a corner in this race or even to get a stage in before your race is done, and you're the only one really involved in that outside of Aaron Adcock, and so now you don't stand to gain any positions on this. The car's pretty much done. Maybe a chance later that Steve could come back, but I think the car's pretty damaged, so it would take a lot of dedication to get back in any kind of positions here in this one.
And he's already disconnected, so he's calling this one over here from Atlanta. He'll focus and try to get the next one, Richmond Raceway, in just 2 weeks' time. Outside lane trying to develop with Charles Phelps, driver of the 75 for Poman Motorsports. Started in the midway of the top 15, has worked his way up 5 since the drop of the green flag and making some decent progress. Him and Chris Kogar trying to work up the top lane. Several drivers who were up there at the beginning of this race prior to caution, they found their way down low. James Kunkel in the 45, he looks up high now. Dakota Curtis in his Chevrolet, he's down low as well, but here comes Kunkel trying to make an effort for the top 5. He'll get swallowed in by those on the inside lane, but here comes Phelps. Progar with a bit of a push as Colin Forster leads by about 6 cars.
45 moves up a lane. Kunkel's going to take point on the outside, but it's 4 cars deep at least. And we might be looking at 3 wide again here on the outside of Zach Wilson. A lot of spots gained here for Chris Shoemaker, up 17 so far. Really impressed with how he, especially at super speedways, can just meticulous and methodically pick his way through traffic and find his way up in the top 10 so quickly.
And he's a driver that has had some success at the super speedway tracks, although he comes off of a 22nd place finish at Daytona several weeks ago to close out the regular season in a Josh Berry paint scheme for Stewart Haas Racing. Well, he's Prestige Worldwide Racing in this series, but Stewart Haas Racing representing with that Aero Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Sits right behind Kip Easley and just in front of league owner Dakota Curtis. But this inside lane seems to be content. You had Kunkel that moved his way up high, potentially some others that could join, but for the most part, they're just closing out to the middle, trying to half block those up top and stay about several cars ahead of that on the outside lane. And somewhat surprising, Bradley, because at many of the super speedways, Talladega and Daytona included, you'll see the high side be the predominant line to be in, the line with the most amount of energy and strength, especially off the corners. But it seems like the organization is much better down low, hence why Colin Forster is ahead by so much, and the top 5 are uncontested right now.
Yeah, I think the side draft hasn't taken full effect. Nobody's really pinching in the corners. You do see every now and then the outside, especially through the quad, will kind of pinch down. But through these corners, because they're so narrow and because it can get loose, guys aren't willing to do that. That side draft maybe will come in later in the stage or late in this race, but nobody's really willing to push the issue because that guy on your inside could step out and get into you very easily here.
Just a quick reminder for the start of the race. We know that several drivers got end-of-line penalties. Surely there'll be penalties for missing the drivers' meeting. Included in that list, Brandon Banks, Joe Sanchez, Richard Swavely, Alex Huffman, and Casey Knighton. Just wanted to give an update on that. They seem to be in this second lane that is, or second group rather, that is pretty far back. Starts with Chuck Phelps, driver of the number 84, that's Chevrolet Camaro, one of the rookies in this series. That's 23rd on back. This long line of cars on the inside lane, they have fallen off by about 2 seconds or so to Eddie Smith, who's the last car in the first group in 20 seconds. Some deep trouble potentially for this group, Bradley, because we know that falling off the draft is dangerous at super speedways, but those tracks are over 2 miles long. They have the ability to give a little longer until the second group or so goes a lap down. Here it's only 1.5 miles, so it's not a lot of time or distance that you can cover before the second group can fall a lap down. Hopefully they'll be able to catch up with that first group, but as soon as you lose the draft, it becomes very tough to get back up to those ahead.
Going after seeing what happened there at the beginning of the race, and just like right here we have Steve M. Stympian saying in the blink of an eye, it's over. So maybe these guys are just sitting back a little bit, biding their time. They know that there's stage breaks and cautions that'll put them back up there, and there's no reason to get involved in something early in this race. So sitting back a couple seconds, that could be the safest place on the racetrack. We'll have to wait and see.
They're all single file. Organization looks good. Several of the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets are there. We mentioned Banks and Sanchez, 2 of them teammates. We know that Jesse Whittington is in there as well, despite a pretty decent start in this race. Was fighting for a top 5 position prior to that first yellow. Justin Erb in his home Demo Chevrolet. He's in this group of single file cars. The onboard look from Whittington is he sits right behind that Allied Chevrolet of Joe Sanchez. Again, they are all single file. They are trying to catch up to a group that maybe giving them some help. Everyone 15th on back, a good amount of them beneath the top 20. Well, they're starting to fight up against each other. They are door-to-door. Austin Shoemaker, Chris Progar among those in that list. Sean Kalis at the back end of it. And look who's in that tied Ford Mustang dark horse in 17th. Eddie Smith, a playoff driver this season despite missing a ton of races this year. His last start came midway through July at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is his first trip to the Atlanta configuration. With this competition and with this series, still in the ability to fight for a Sunoco Cup championship, although we've seen him a little more scarcely throughout the campaign.
Yeah, and Eddie had some time off there. It was a little bit of a hiatus. Nobody really knew if he was gone, done, you know, and kind of in and out. And then here he shows up, 10th in the points coming into tonight, so definitely has a shot. But imagine had he not missed those I believe 3 races that he was out, he probably could have been, you know, 8th or 7th in the points. So you know, sometimes you weigh those options and maybe the frustration of how your season was going compared at the end. Maybe it was enough break for him to get back to it and have some excitement to come back here for these final 7 to 8 races.
You know, to quote a J. Cole line from one of his songs, he said, you know, someone sent me a beat a while ago. I may have given it a year or so just to digest it, live a little before you come back in with a fresh mindset. It seems like that's what Eddie Smith has done. He's taken some time off from this league, even though they do have a week off between race weekends. But Eddie Smith now with a fresh mindset for Poman Motorsports in his search for a Sunoco Cup Series championship. He'll have the driver who started outside row 1 right behind him, Shane Wyatt, who seemed to have fallen off and I think has picked up a bit of nose damage from either an incident or something that we did not account for. Shane Wyatt started outside front row. There's the damage on his bow tie.
Maybe it was a checkup or something. Maybe it happened during that caution with Stempien and Adcock. Maybe there was just a big checkup behind and he got in the back of somebody. That can't happen very easily here because if we go on board with the 27, you can see how difficult it is. Well, maybe not from that angle, but you can see how difficult it is to see on the gyro camera when you're right up on the bumper of a car.
Oh, trouble! Zach Wilson sideways, back straightaway. He is able to collect it before the entry of turn 3. He was in the battle for the race lead, got tapped and hip checked, went sideways, was able to keep that Ford Mustang Dark Horse from careening into the inside wall. A look from the 51. Starts with Kip Easley and a wonderful save. He does pancake the left side of the car, but he may have escaped without that much damage. A wonderful save by Wilson.
Watch it one more time. I mean, he travels probably a good 50 yards across this racetrack at 190 miles per hour. And that actually started with I think Kunkel getting in the back of Kip Easley and sending him down into Wilson. So that hip check, a lot of inertia. That's 3,500 pounds roughly that you're sending to the inside wall, and you're just manhandling it to not hit it.
Well, talking about the back end of the pack with Shane Wyatt and Eddie Smith, we were about to turn to a wonderful battle for the race lead with Wilson, Easley, and company, and then all of a sudden that happened. It has dissipated that outside groove, so all the energy down low again with Colin Forrester in control. No contention for this man right here, the Jacksonville, Florida native, with his teammate Curtis Kelly right behind. That's the Nashville Super Speedway winner. Both of them able to grab a W this season to lock them into the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. And Forrester, a driver who made the championship 4 last season, to get all the way back to that very same moniker at Homestead of Miami Speedway at season's end. So far, just hanging on to what he can as of the moment. There's James Kunkel, who has been fluctuating from back to front to back to front. Now he's in the middle of the top 15, running outside with rookie Stephen Harlow just in front. There's the Allen's Legacy Racing orange and black Ford Mustang Dark Horse of Justin Winters down low, and they'll look on board with that M&M's machine running in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think that check up there with Easley and then sending him down into Wilson, a lot of these guys caught back up, but then some of them fell back. I think there's testing the waters. is essentially what's going on here. The first stage, always an experiment with what the car is capable of, and I think with James Kunkel and a few others, they're seeing how long does it take to get up here, how hard do I push my stuff to get there, and will I be able to do it at the end of this race? When we get under the lights, the track conditions are going to change. Right now, very late evening, probably still a little warm out here comparatively. You'll see that track temperature change lower and lower as we get towards the end of this race.
And what do you try to prepare for at this Atlanta configuration? Because we know that at many other tracks, preparation is mostly the same mindset-wise, but physically, it's always different. You either look at some tracks like, how are my lines? What is my tire wear looking like? How much do I have to slow down to make the corner with enough speed to make my way through and arc into whatever lane I need to get the run off the exit? Here at Atlanta, what do you try and prepare for as a super speedway that you don't really know what it races like until you're in race conditions with drivers around you?
I think prepping mostly is just seeing like which line would prevail. If you get into a scenario where you need positions, is it better to be on the inside or the outside? Finding who can hold their lines better so you can work with them. And overall, I think the biggest gain here is learning that fuel mileage, knowing exactly when to pit, because this race can go green for a lot of laps. You can end up having to come down pit road, so practice that as well. That's the big prep, is getting down pit road and knowing when to do it.
And how do you do it with your teammates? And we start to pose that question with Fast Banana Racing. We know that we are only about 17 laps away from the end of the first stage, so there won't be any concerns for pitting under green. But when you get into those 100 lap stages and the second and the final to end this race, you may look at, if we stay green, the possibility of teammates working together, hopping on the brakes and going underneath that apron. And it seems like with the speed you're carrying, you may just have to do what the Cup Series drivers do in real life. Enter down low before turn 3, get the car woed up before you can get to that pit road speed limit of 55 miles an hour. And speaking of Fast Banana, they've got 3 drivers inside the top 5. Forrester the leader, Kelly behind, and Wyatt Brackett. How about that Toyota Camry making it work up high in that second lane? He's got the push from Kip Easley, and that Chevrolet behind. Austin Reedy not too far away either. He's pushed himself into the top 7. And we know that all of them are playoff drivers, all of them either getting wins or pointing their way in to playoff territory. Wonderful for Fast Banana to have the whole gang here up front.
Well, that's typical super speedway fashion. We saw it at Daytona. We've seen it several times this season at these faster tracks where Fast Banana will find their way up front. It's just a matter of who is going to prevail or stay up here. We always tend to see an issue with at least one of these guys, and that's what they try to stick together and work together, but there's everybody else around them scheming to make sure that doesn't happen. You can see right there, Easley is going to push them by and get the 30 of Brackett out ahead of this. He's going to take all the way up here. Now it's all 4 cars up here at the front with Reedy on the outside.
That outside line shot up like a rocket, and Austin Reedy decided to elect a crossover move down low in 3 and 4. Gets underneath Kip Easley. The rise out of turn 4. Battle for the lead. Brackett and Reedy to the start-finish line.
Well, this is controlling both lanes. That's what they want to do. So then that way they can manipulate who's going to get the stage points. And the only way around this group right now is to take it 3 wide. And I wouldn't recommend it this late into the run. We're 47 lap old tires and about 40 of those are up to speed. I don't think I would push it. You might just be content for racing for 5th at this point.
Well, now we're getting to that theoretical tire cliff to where these cars get a little more squirrely as the laps progress. And when you're entering and exiting these corners at full throttle, the look on board from Curtis, it just tells you how much bobbing and weaving you'll see on the racetrack. A little less exiting turn 2, but a lot more entering turn 3. When you've got the push entering the corner, the car can either swivel up high or can start to kick up the rear end. It just depends on the situation, but Curtis holding his own here. The battle for the lead continues between Reedy and Brackett. But Brackett will have the momentum. Kip Easley right behind. Do they flutter down low? They flutter down low. Easley does for the race lead.
He broke him up. He did what he needed to do, but he has no help. And you know the 96 isn't going to help getting back up there. This is going to allow the 43 of Curtis down low, and here comes Easley to give him a push. Change for the lead again. Curtis is going to lead it.
Well, a bunch of these guys may not be teammates if they're not from Fast Banana, but they are from the same manufacturer. Curtis, Easley, now Peel, and Muscarella, all of them Chevrolet Camaros, working their way into the top 5. Curtis a sniff of the race lead. Entering 1 and 2, Brackett will have to back up to Peel if he wants to run entering turn 3. Curtis still has control. There comes the push from Peel. Brackett back to the point, turn 3.
I don't know how many times you can help a guy before the back bumper falls off of this thing, but Kip Easley is shoving Dakota Curtis. I mean, it's not just a bump draft, it's a shove. He got him probably a full car length into 3 and 4. I'm impressed with what that 8 car did and how they were able to get connected so quickly. That's, you know, being comfortable with the guy in front of you and knowing that he can take that kind of hit. And Curtis is riding the lightning right now.
Well, Curtis knows a thing or two about finishing well at super speedways. Had a 4th place outing at Talladega Super Speedway in late April to open the first 5-race stretch of the season. A man who has suffered a lot throughout this series as the competition has risen. Curtis it's been harder for him to achieve victory lane as of late, but a good start right now for the Chevrolet. He's up front. Kip Easley pushing the whale out of him, and I guess all in that attempt, Bradley, to slow down the control of both lanes from Fast Banana. They saw what was going on and they said, we don't want any more of it. They used the potential energy from that outside to carry themselves down low. Reedy's in the middle, hip checking, and they all keep it straight. Turn 1.
But they got to make it through the exit of 2. It's still not a good situation. Muscarella on the outside. Plenty of room given there by Reedy, but he's in a bad spot, and we've got 3 rows of it now.
Reedy in the middle, 3 wide. He's got his teammates to help in Forrester and Kelly. They're breaking free. Curtis on the bottom. He's loose out of turn 4. He'll skip through the grass and he'll save it for the most part. Curtis will avoid a second caution flag. And with 6 laps left in this stage, Brackett, the control car, and the chaos is turning up.
Yeah, intensity is at 100% here. Watch the airtime from the 43 car. I mean, this thing goes airborne 3 different times across that quad oval.
I don't even know how he kept it straight. He got back to the racing surface without anybody in his way. That car took flight, hopping over the grass. Well, the lawnmowers will not be happy after the end of this race. Curtis, though, being able to escape with a clean race car. The battle for the top spot still underway. Now it's the 2-time champ, Lawson Peel, with help down low from Austin Reedy. 5 laps to go in stage 1.
How about Muscarella sneaking his way up here into this? He's 23 spots up, 29 spots up for Lawson Peel. Pretty much the entire top 5 has gained plus 20 on average. You got Reedy, who's been up here for a while. Colin Forrester, who's fallen back. It looks like Fast Banana kind of falling apart as we work more and more cars that aren't part of this team in between these guys.
You're right, Bradley. 3 of the top 5 currently started outside of the top 20, and 1, Lawson Peel, started outside or just inside the top 30. Muscarella coming off of that big-time win at the World Center of Racing several weeks ago. That's what got him into the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. His first win since the season finale in Season 3 at the virtual Michigan International Speedway. Cars in the middle. That's Zach Wilson out of nowhere through the top 5.
Oh, you got to keep the paint on it. Wilson's going to find a hole on the outside. That was a wise move. Get out of there as fast as you can. And they all leave Lawson Peel out to dry. If they can get clear through 4 here, this is going to be really, really tight, but you got to be careful. We've seen it several times here with the hip checks through the quad, and now Wilson's stuck in the center. Going to push Peel back up front.
And as they move down low, Curtis Kelly will be left for dead at the exit of turn 2. Zach Wilson giving the shove to Peel. Now Stephen Harlow makes his way up high. We're 3 wide.
There's Eddie Smith
on the back straightaway. Eddie Smith down low, almost making contact. They'll settle it out. Zach Wilson is still in the middle of a 3 wide dogfight.
It's almost 4
Garrett
wide.
Brown up high. Chris Progard down low. We almost looked at 4 wide as the battle for the lead continues. Wyatt Brackett, the main man to beat. Final lap in stage 1. And now
Oh,
Muscarella goes
Muscarella.
sideways. He's into the wall. He carries Peel with him. And there's the yellow for just the second time for on-track activity. And Kip Easley gets T-boned at the end by Justin Erb.
I think this is going to go to bracket here. But, man, that's not how you want it to end. You had probably 4 of the top 10 end up involved in that. There was stage points for all those guys, and they get sent backwards really quick, all within a backstretch.
And for the second time tonight, a top-loaded playoff driver gets taken out in a crash. And here's a look at how it all started. This is entering the final lap of the stage. Austin Reedy, Wyatt Brackett, door-to-door for the lead. Muscarella goes up high. Curtis Kelly gives him the tap, and as Muscarella comes off of the outside wall, that's where he hooks Lawson Peel's Chevrolet hard into the wall. Then later, Kip Easley travels down the track, hip checks Alex Huffman. Justin Erb with nowhere to go but to the direct side of that Chevrolet. We saw Steven Stempien, the playoff points leader, taken out in our first crash of the day. And now it's the second place driver in the standings involved.
Huffman gets a piece of that as well. And look at, I believe that was the 55 of Sanchez just trying to dodge it. A multitude of different drivers, but I think this this stage goes to Wyatt Brackett. I believe he was the lead car when this all happened.
So Wyatt Brackett, the winner, technically, as we'll get official confirmation, the winner of stage 1. And for the first time this season, Brackett will call himself a stage winner. He's got Austin Reedy, Colin Forster right behind, Chris Shoemaker, and Curtis Kelly round out the top 5 here in this frenetic first stage from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. First time stage winner in Wyatt Brackett. He will be the command car when we get the next restart. You're watching coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs from the Super Speedway of Atlanta. Live on VSPEED. We'll be back in just a moment. Back live from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway, coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs continue here on VSPEED. Alongside producer slash commentator Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno, and Bradley, in an instant, we saw this race change from calm action up front and maybe some mishaps here and there to a wild battle for the race lead that turned out tough for Lawson Peel and Alex Muscarella. They are the hearts of the impact here on our most recent caution of the race. Pit stops occurred just after that. We don't have official confirmation, but right now, Wyatt Brackett is considered the Stage 1 winner here at Atlanta, as we will get the 1 to green signal and will be ready to bring out our second restart officially of the race at lap number 64. Bradley, your thoughts about this stage, because we were talking about different storylines from here and there, and it seemed okay, and all of a sudden it went crazy in the last several laps of that stage.
Can't say that I'm surprised. We've seen it time and time again, especially at tracks like this where guys are fighting for positions, and hey, it's playoffs, baby. You got to go up there and get the points. So if there's an opportunity and you see it, you're going to take the hole. you know, for the first stage, maybe a little more intense than I thought it would be, but I'm not surprised that these guys did it. There was a lot of drivers that set back for a long time before they got up there, and then once they got there, they were willing to do whatever it took to get maybe 1 or 2 more spots, and that's what you saw. It was a product of guys just going for the same pieces of real estate, and the 48 of Muscarella just gets kind of shoved out of line, or maybe gets a little loose, gets up into the wall, and unfortunately he gets a hold of Lawson Peels. So maybe some good news for Steve Stempy, and Lawson Peels not having a great day as well.
So it will most likely even them out in the playoff fight. Peel has rejoined the speedway, and he has avoided being put a lap down. That car seems to be rather completely fixed, so it looks like Peel will be able to continue without any problems. Stempy in his car was absolutely toast when he got hooked into the outside wall. It seems like with the energy they were pushing into turns 1 and 2 with Peel, it didn't suffer that big of an impact, so he will be able to trot forward. Meanwhile, Austin Reedy and Wyatt Brackett, the pair of Fast Banana Racing teammates, will bring us back to the green flag. Stage 2 underway from Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Well, you can tell Fast Banana counted that one down. Those two dead even at the line. They got it up and running, the outside, the inside, pretty much door to door all the way through the entry of 1 into the exit of 2, and it looks like the 4 now of Shoemaker is going to get a decent shot here at maybe pushing Reedy up to the lead. Here's Eddie Smith just behind them. The 45 of Kunkel, who tried the outside kind of first there. He's finally back into the top 10, but the jostling around pit stops didn't go well for some of these guys. Damage on Chris Progar. A few other drivers came in and got some damage repaired. And so 18, 20 seconds for some of these drivers that now they have clean cars. They might be able to get up here.
A ton of them are at the back of the field, though, trying to push forward and find their place. Lawson Peel, Alex Muscarella, some of them also Alex Huffman. For Allen's Legacy Racing, he's trying to get himself sorted in the mid-pack, and there's a look at it, almost 3 wide. Some of those in the back, Richard Swavely, Dakota Curtis, you know that Joe Sanchez back there, Stephen Harlow, just a bulk of drivers who have been able to catch back up with this initial pack. Although we saw some separation a little earlier on in this race. But it felt like, Bradley, we saw at the end of that first stage, everything was in the attempt to break up the Fast Banana group of 4. Right now, it seems to be the same, regardless of how you count it. First, second, third, and fourth at the start-finish line, all Fast Banana Toyota Camrys. They have been able to control the tempo of this race, and it got out of hand a little bit for them, but for the most part, keeping it under control. 67 laps in the book.
That's what they want to do. They want to keep controlling both lines, and that's why you see the 96 of Reedy kind of playing that outside line. He's going to try to keep Zach Wilson down low and prevent him from getting in front. You know, if they get split up, that's when they have a little bit more problems, and Wilson's able to do so. So that right there is kind of what everyone's trying to do, is any way they can break up these 4 cars, they're going to take it. And Wilson even kind of put himself out there. He's going to lose some ground, but even so, Reedy's going to have to make a choice. Does he want to still control that outside and push his way back up and in turn push Wilson, or does he want to back up a couple spots, let Wilson out to dry, and then get back up there at the front?
Well, right now, he's got nowhere to go but to stay behind that Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Wilson, the aggressor as of late. We saw him get bumped out of line on the back straightaway earlier in stage 1 and hit the inside wall a little bit, got a bit of damage, but has it fixed and has been able to push forward regardless of the circumstances. He gets a monster shove from Austin Reedy entering 3 and 4. The onboard look with the Ford Mustang Dark Horse stays up top on Curtis Kelly. He'll slot into 3rd, but so far not enough momentum on the high side to make an effort for the race lead just yet.
Wilson's doing a fantastic job here on the outside, but he's not getting all the help that he could get. You know that Reedy is not going to push him up there past his teammates and allow him to lead some laps, so he's just going to ride around here, probably in 3rd or 4th position for quite some time until Reedy can find a way around. Reedy actually has a little connection issue there briefly, and that sends Eddie Smith up to the outside. Very difficult when a car disappears like that.
Especially at these super speedways. How many times have we seen it cause accidents? We know Alex Muscarella raced one at Daytona, blinked in the middle of the field on the inside lane, and in a moment's notice when he resurged, he he was around, and that was the caution flag. Just a little bit of a scare there for Eddie Smith running in 9th. Again, we talk about the absence of Eddie Smith in contention for Rookie of the Year honors in this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season, and he's done a nice job for himself in the top 10. Buckled up the outside lane, did entering turn 1. Wilson had a tap of the outside wall, and they did a wonderful job of keeping themselves collected. Austin Shoemaker and Chris Progar touching doors on the backstretch.
Progar he was tight there off the exit of 2, and he had to kind of push it down. He's doing it again here. He's getting tight up near the wall. There's not a lot of room here. Chris Progar, actually that's the 14. Kind of losing track here, but that's Austin Shoemaker. I'm trying to figure out, finally they settle it down, but in the middle there, I couldn't decide who was going to give first. Looked like Shoemaker finally said, I've had enough of the door checks. I got to back out of this thing. We got to live to fight another day.
And we've got 15th on back, losing touch of that first pack. It's Sean Kalis and that SK Sim Racing Chevy up front of this second group. They're now starting to lose the draft from Dustin Reeves, the last car in that first pack of machines. The onboard look from Kalis, who started in 26 plus 11 since the drop of the green flag. Solid progress for him, but he may be out of luck if he loses touch of those guys right in front. And it makes it worse as well, Bradley, when you have side-by-side action in the second group. It really doesn't make you faster, and oftentimes it slows you down, more often with these cars than others on the iRacing service, just because of all that side draft.
Yeah, it kind of pulls the cars back. You get a good run on the outside, and then the inside pulls back, and it's just domino after domino of, we're fighting ourselves. You're rowing a boat, essentially, when really you need just to use it single file, get that thing pointed straight as an arrow, and that's going to help your aerodynamics overall for the whole group. You can see that Kalis was able to hold on there to the back of the 6, so he will draft back up to Dustin Reeves, but the same can't be said for maybe some of these guys like Ray Rogers. They're starting to lose touch with this first group, and, it gets beyond 6/10. It gets very difficult to get back up there.
Rogers, Sanchez, Peel among those 18th through 20th, but the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets will work together down low. They'll take Rogers for the spill up top. They'll flush him down, and he'll be back in this group of side-by-side drivers, which includes Allen's Legacy Racing's Alex Huffman, who recently, over the last several weeks, got to celebrate with his team, his employer, Stewart Haas Racing, as they got a big-time win with Chase Briscoe, locking Briscoe into the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs for 2024, and he sent a whole picture of him standing alongside that beautiful highpoint.com Ford Mustang Dark Horse and that Darlington Trophy for winning the Southern 500. I'd say that the atmosphere was really up-tempo with Stewart Haas Racing after that win, and just how emotional it was for Chase Briscoe is equally as emotional as it is for all of those behind the scenes at SHR that make the wheels turn.
Unless you were the guy that had to wrap the car, in which case you were probably exhausted. I heard they wrapped that thing 4 different times before it finally went and won a race. So, they said the extra glue helped that thing across the line. I think Huffman said he had damage there. We saw that wreck on the backstretch just before that stage, and he said it killed his car. So, he's not looking too bad, though. He's still up to pace. I think he could very easily get back up here into the top 10. We'll have to wait and see, but the car doesn't look bad.
Doesn't. Much like Lawson Peel, he was able to fix his car relatively quickly without falling a lot down. So that's the good news for those drivers in the back. They could continue, and they'll keep in mind what happens at the front, how much chaos could ultimately reign here at a super speedway like Atlanta. But Huffman and Peel have done a nice job of working progressively through the field. They know that their mission is to be up here with all of these guys and have a chance at a top spot, specifically those stage points. Now that you have Peel with him and working his way back up from behind the wall, then Steven Stempian, who's out of this race, there are a lot of points to grab, specifically for those either at the bottom of the cut line or just in the middle that didn't get any progressive extra points, as we'll call it, going into the postseason. And talking about the Alex Huffman story, he said in the Discord chat, he said that it had to be stripped off of the Mahindra wrap, which was scheduled to run at the Lady in Black, then take it off, wrap it with the 2024 High Point scheme, and then they had to pull that wrap off, and then wrap it with the same scheme of High Point from the year before. So it was 3 different times they had to wrap that car all for it to go ahead and win the Southern 500. That was fun.
And if you haven't noticed, this second group has caught back up, so that kind of proves that Wyatt Brackett, Colin Forster, yeah, they're controlling the lanes here for Fast Banana, but I think because it's been the same cars pushing up front here, starting to get a little hot, and they're not able to push it quite the speed that backpack was, because they were kind of keeping a gap from each other for a long time, and now they had a little bit more wiggle room on the temps to push their way back up here.
That's a wonderful point you make there, Bradley. Temperatures, how much they matter at the super speedways. I'm sure that you had that conversation at Daytona several weeks ago at another super speedway race. How important is that to keep the fresh air on your radiator? Because oftentimes you'll see drivers get distracted while they're pushing another car and their temps reach levels that are too high for the car to handle. That engine explodes instantaneously. How important is that to keep in mind when you're in the middle of the pack and even if you're battling for the race lead?
We had a lot of engines go off there unexpectedly, just, you know, no warning whatsoever. And even on our side of the broadcast, engines were failing without any indication that they had failed. No smoke, cars just fall through the field. And so for guys behind, they kind of had like a surprise chicane that a car would just almost come to a stop in the middle of the backstretch, and it's very important. That's probably 50% of it is just keeping this car in a regulated temperature, and you're doing that while trying to figure out where's the next hole, where can I go to get to the front. Right here was Zach Wilson, 3 wide. Wilson might have to step out. I mean, this car is getting hot. And you can see the 31 moved up. He's been pushing Wyatt Brackett, so that's definitely what the case is. These guys are getting hot up at the front.
And Wilson has no one to back off onto because Garrett Brown is about 3 or 4 car lengths behind him on the back straightaway. The inside line lost a bit of ground and lost a bit of patronage, and that outside lane a bit more stuffed full of drivers, so they're able to push forward, although Brackett is doing a great job of staying up ahead. He'll fall back to 3rd. And maybe even more. Here comes Chris Shoemaker, James Kunkel along those on the outside. And bringing up the topic of temperatures, I think to a specific memory of this series. Several seasons ago, it was actually last year where here in Atlanta Motor Speedway was the opening race of the campaign. Lawson Peel, who went in as the 2-time defending champ. That's the driver that ultimately blew up early in that race without any other indication. It was hard for him to gain that momentum back throughout the course of the season, and he was able to capitalize that with a championship of race 1. We had our questions of how much pressure is on him now, given the fact that he blew up so easily and probably didn't account for the temperatures behind the race car. Now for Peel, he runs 30th, or he started 30th, he's in 22nd, and now they're 3 wide up the road. Austin Reedy pushing forward on the inside, Wyatt Brackett getting left for Dust on the bottom. He'll get picked up by Dakota Curtis, but in the middle, Zach Wilson falling back without help.
And this front 10 has kind of overheated and reshuffled and moved around. You've got a new pusher there on Colin Forrester, so Fast Banana still controlling the front 4. And I was kind of seeing back here with the frustration. Zach Wilson was on the outside, stuck with Reedy pushing him and couldn't get past 4th position. Then he got to the inside, couldn't get past 4th position. Now we got cars in the wall. That's the 45 of Kunkel, and a big check up here with the 6.
Dustin Reeves into the wall. He keeps it collected. Everyone else gets away without a problem. We're still 3 wide, though. Muscarella in the middle. Lawson Peel on the bottom, but Reeves will escape without any more harm done. He got stacked up as Chris Shoemaker got a tap of the outside wall in front of Kunkel, and basically everyone got stacked up behind.
You're going to see it right here into the entry of 3, the 4 of Shoemaker, the 45 of Kunkel, and that just chain reactions. Reeves is, you know, moving through. He probably gained 4 spots just prior to that, and then hits the roadblock. I mean, it's almost like hitting a speed bump at that point.
And very easily, Kunkel and Reeves could get down on the racetrack, hook the car on the bottom like we've seen several times tonight, and cause a massive accident. Dakota Curtis sideways, back straight away. He holds on to the Chevrolet Camaro. Another scare before turn 3. It was Zach Wilson that got into the back end of the Chevrolet. Curtis holds on to it, but he will lose all of the track position available. Brad Fulham, the one skirting in front of him. We'll look at the replay, and this was off turn 2. Wilson, the faulty push, sending Curtis straight for the wall, but he holds on to it.
that's twice now that the 43 has been at the lead and then got sent to the inside. You go back prior to this moment, and it was somewhere around this point in the race. This is deeper back before stage 1 had ended. Watch this coming out of turn 4. This is where he goes through the quad oval grass, I believe. He just had the lead.
The skippy jump through the grass in the front straightaway.
There he goes. So that's twice now for the 43.
And once more, he will have to work his way back up through the field. Problem is, he is 3 seconds and counting away from the next car in line. Brad Fulham sitting 28th, so as many laps as will run green here with Curtis all by himself. He will fall a lap down just with the nature of how this race goes on a super speedway. You've got no help, well, then you're going to fall off the pack very quickly, and especially given the fact that this is only a mile and a half compared to the bigger super speedways we often visit on the schedule. It'll be a little bit quicker for Dakota Curtis to get lapped, and it will add another factor for those drivers up front that will have to try and get around Curtis as they work around to the front straightaway. Now still a bit of time if a caution doesn't race for them to catch up to Curtis, but unfortunately Dakota getting involved in 2 of those accidents, sending him back, this one worse than the first.
The lights are on, Kenneth, and that's when the intensity picks up even more. I think it's something to do with the full moon and just the fact that the lights are on. It kind of changes your perspective, I think. You kind of race a little different when the lights come on. I think you see things through a different scope, so maybe it's just a psychological thing of you're running out of time, you're running out of daylight, or something to that effect. I'm not sure, but you can see all these drivers going single file, and that indicates that maybe pit stops can be coming up.
Well, as the old saying goes, the night time is the right time. Here at Atlanta, not sure if it will be for many of those in the field. Eddie Smith finds himself down low. He just gets into the cramped space between Shane Wyatt, and it was the car right in front of him that he was able to get through. Actually, that was, yes, actually Charles Stevens. Yes, car number 84. And then Garrett Brown, Season 1 champ in Prestige Worldwide Racing's dark horse Ford Mustang. So all of them down low. You're right. We may end up in that situation of green flag stops. These guys are clocking in 35 laps on their stint. So it will take a little bit longer for them to enter pit road, but another reminder that this stage is 100 laps long, and we did not have the benefit of carving into the stage a lot more than we usually do when we have a caution directly at a stage lap. We are able to go 5 or so laps under yellow where they can save fuel and then prep for the shortened theoretical stage 2. But we didn't have that luxury this time, which means strategy is in the equation for the first time tonight.
See Fast Banana kind of grouped up here. They stand to pit together and probably benefit the most if we do get to this green flag pit stop. We're sitting, single file all the way back to James Kunkel in the 11th position. So for everyone 12th on back, if they haven't sorted it out, they will here soon. You can see them there's holes there. Some of these drivers diving down to the bottom. There's still a few up there like Chuck Phelps, like Crowbar, some guys that are still undecided. They might stay out an extra lap just to try to get up there and get some laps led. But yeah, I think Fast Banana is in the best scenario right now for hitting pit road all together, as long as they execute well and don't get into each other. That's another factor when you're pitting with a bunch of cars. When all your teammates come down, you have to be perfect. You don't want to ruin their day.
And as long as you don't get any penalties, that also could separate those sacred teammates. Fast Banana, they seem to be collective in the top 6, but for everyone else, what is the strategy here? If not your teammates, who do you come down pit road with?
Well, I mean, you got to pay attention to who's calling it out here. You got to see who's up on that relative, who's close by, and know that you're pitting with someone at the very least, so that way when you get back up to speed, you have a car that you can draft with. Hitting all alone, you can very easily end up on an island all by yourself and be in the shoes of guys like Dakota Curtis, who's losing more and more time to this group. He's over 19 seconds to the lead and counting. So you don't want to put yourself in that scenario. And again, don't get a penalty because that'll even add on to it. So the judgment of who's around and when do you pit, I think it's kind of position based. All I know is that if I'm not part of Fast Banana, I'm going to pit whenever they, whenever they're not pitting. That's the goal here, is to short pit or go a lap or two longer so you can maybe work the strategy against them.
And we'll see just if Fast Banana is the first team to enter pit road. We know that they've led most of this race, so Colin Forrester, Wyatt Brackett, and now Curtis Kelly, they've spent a bunch of time up front. Chuck Phelps is going to get bumped out of line. We're 3 now, 4 wide, crash behind him. And it is
Bill Schoonover, I
Richard
believe.
Swavely, Bill Schoonover involved, and so is Brandon Banks. Nasty hit in turns 3 and 4, entering the quad oval. And as they shuffled up front, they shuffled behind as well. And that's where the problem began.
This is for Brogar, but then this is like a separate deal here with the 9. I'm not sure what caused that. He actually left the session midway through that crash to not get anyone else involved. Kind of just alt F4'd out of the crash, but watch it right here. It's like a checkup and across the hood of Banks.
I'm not sure if there was a miscommunication there on whether he was clear or not, but Schoonover didn't really have any space to work with right behind Alex Huffman to look on board from Banks. Straight lining it on the quad oval.
That could be that, Schoonover was seeing the wreck and trying to avoid it, not realizing there was a car to his outside. I know that's kind of a blind spot there, but I mean, that brings our chain reaction into the pits, so we didn't make it to green flag stops, and now we're going to see more control, a little easier to get on and off pit road for Fast Banana.
A sigh of relief for everyone, though. They don't have to pit under green. There's Curtis Kelly, the race leader on pit road. Everyone getting 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. Jacks are off on the right side of the first pit stall car. Colin Forrester. Jacks are up on the left side. There's a car up ahead who took only, looks like 2 tires. Chris Shoemaker at 11.6 second stop gets in the race lead.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
Correction. Fuel only, no tires for Shoemaker.
I mean, that's some laps led, but you see how this car is getting kind of erratic. And yeah, we've had a weather change here yet again. Track temps come down 2 degrees since we last, almost 3 degrees, I believe, since we last checked on it. It's going to be grippier, but it can be very deceitful. When these tires have already had a heat cycle, you've let them cool off, and it might feel good for a couple laps, and then suddenly you get that bad bump in the corner, and it just shoots sideways.
How many times have we seen cold tires cause incidents in the first lap or 2 off of a restart? Many times we've seen it, whether it's a super speedway or not, but Shoemaker has all the heat in his set of Goodyear Eagles, taking no tires on that pit stop, fuel only, so he will be able to save one of those 8 sets that were given to the drivers at the start of this race. But let's talk a bit about how the track temperature has changed. It has cooled down because it's nighttime here at Atlanta, something that we haven't had in the sim until several days ago when the iRacing season build came out. When Atlanta came out in this new configuration, even with the old Atlanta Motor Speedway, there were no night lights available. So even though they modeled track lights on this new version of Atlanta, they could not turn on. You could not run this track in the darkness without seeing absolutely nothing if you didn't have a car that had headlights. But for the first time on iRacing, we get to go night racing at Atlanta. And when Dakota Curtis sent a poll out on the Discord saying, do you want to run this track in the day or the night? Everyone voted 97 or 96% chose nighttime conditions. So everyone wanted to try out the night lights here at Atlanta, and they seem to be working beautifully.
Yeah, it was pretty favored in one direction, that everybody wanted to try something new. Then, it's not essentially a beta test. Some of these things have been in testing for a long, long time. So pretty confident with the iRacing service that this was going to be a good thing. However, sometimes, like the old Daytona back in 2008, we actually had a first here on VSPEED where we ran out of daylight and the race was shortened because of lighting issues. So sometimes you can run into things like that, and I'm glad that iRacing got it right here.
And can't wait for the day where we'll have oval races shortened by rain. I don't know when that day is going to come up, what league is going to do it, if they're letting everyone be okay with having the race be delayed or canceled midway, but Nonetheless, we'll see what happens. Chris Shoemaker, Curtis Kelly on the front row, fresh off of another caution here from Hampton, Georgia. Shoemaker gets off the blocks easily, but by a hefty margin. How long will it take until that closes up? We've got fast banana cars right behind. Second and third, Kelly and Reedy now making the move in turn 2.
Yeah, he got out to too much of a jump there on that restart, and now Fast Banana is going to go to the outside. They're going to take Eddie Smith with them, but they're going to control the bottom lane now. Actually kind of playing both lines through 3 and 4. And this spells trouble for the 4 because he's on old tires. Remember, he's going to have the hardest time keeping that car down, and he's in about 5th or 6th spot. It's going to be rather difficult to hold on to this thing.
And it only makes it worse when you've got a driver behind you that is desperate to join his teammates up front. Colin Forrester and Wyatt Brackett, they were the two that got shuffled out of line off of that caution and off of those yellow flag pit stops. So they want to join their teammates on the inside lane or be on top and try to control the pace of this race still, but they're going to move their way through. Forrester still behind Shoemaker. No problems for any of those cars on the inside. And look at the move by Eddie Smith. For the first time, Smith, the race leader.
Got a great shove there by Progar to get him up there as well. And back into the picture on the outside as Lawson Peel gets to the back bumper of Progar. They're going to push to get that outside going again. This could be the breakup of the band here for Fast Banana. Several different cars making a big push. The fresh tire is going to help it.
And how do you move up if you're Colin Forrester and Wyatt Brackett? Both of them either on the inside or the outside, but several cars back up the road. Is there any way to push through, or are you just too scared to move 3 wide just based off of history tonight?
I don't know that 3 wide's the answer, really, but they might go up and try to command that outside line for a moment, break its momentum. You might see Reedy step up here into the middle just to keep Progar on his toes and make it a little bit tighter. He might back out of the throttle. You can kind of mess with guys on that high line when you do things like that. Just, you know, keep it half a lane up and keep them from getting the momentum. I haven't seen it yet, but I also haven't seen the outside get quite the run that they just got a moment ago with Eddie Smith.
They haven't been as strong as we've seen at other super speedway tracks. It's all been the inside lane, which is almost counterintuitive when you look at how these next-gen cars operate in the draft. And Colin Forrester picks his nose underneath Chris Shoemaker. Now Shoemaker in the middle, 3 wide. Garrett Brown, the teammate's going to give him space. Now Whittington gets turned hard into the outside wall. Dakota Curtis, Chuck Feltz, and many others involved. And that is a big-time crash. 111 laps in. Jesse Whittington getting hooked after everyone stacked up in front to allow Chris Shoemaker to get into line.
This was just instant. Still trying to sort this out, but it happened so fast. I was actually watching the 16 of Garrett Brown, and then suddenly the 94 of Whittington just shoots to the outside right behind him. I'm not even sure what caused that.
We'll take another look at it, and you'll see Shoemaker, middle 3 wide. There's Garrett Brown, Prestige Worldwide Racing teammate. I think it was right there where Chuck Stevens was coming up behind the 16, as Brown was a little out of shape, and they all checked up. And as Whittington was slowing down just to not run over the car in front, that's where some of the other drivers come into the equation. Here's a look on board from Dakota Curtis, and this one will not be pretty.
Popped engine for the 43. That's the 3rd one for him.
And after picking up just his 4th top 10 of the season, or rather not Curtis picking up his 4th top 10 of the season, but picking up pretty decent finishes in some races, all of a sudden it's gone sour. There's Chuck Feltz, who had a solid start to this race, and now his Ford Mustang Dark Horse torn up as he putts around at the apron of turns 3 and 4. And there's this car on the pit lane with some others getting damage repair. Ray Rogers getting a piece of that incident. Dustin Reeves and several others either just using this stop as an opportunity or those who were directly involved. Alex Huffman, there's James Kunkel down there. So a hefty list of cars, Bradley, that were involved, and safe to say that's our biggest crash of the night.
That one involved at least 7-8 cars, and there's a few on pit road that had damage from other instances here in this race that maybe they never got a chance to repair it, but Alex Huffman had just got his car back up to speed, and now he's been on pit road for over a minute. I think he's got a lot more damage this time around. The 43 of Curtis is probably going to be done for the night. I know this isn't how he wanted the first race of the playoffs to go. 43 had found the lead several times tonight, and just a chain reaction. It's another one of those blink of an eye moments where you just can't get on the brakes, you can't react fast enough.
And he may just be the 6th car that'll DNF here from Atlanta Motor Speedway. If he does go behind the wall, he'll join Stephen Harlow, Kip Easley, Casey Knighton, Aaron Adcock, and Steven Stepien as those that are officially out of tonight's race from this super speedway here in Georgia. Curtis, who had run up front, then got swapped out twice, skipping through the grass once, then skipping through the backstretch the second time, and now just gets this night daggered at the end of this one. He'll try and repair his Chevrolet, but it'll be a tall task for the sim guys on pit road to get that car back up and running. He is 3 laps down and counting as we will double up for the green flag restart at lap 115. Eddie Smith, the control car, Curtis Kelly on the outside.
So now it's a matter of we've kind of wrecked some. We still have another stage in this race. We haven't completed stage 2. We're gonna have about 45 to go on that. 50 roughly, and it's a tight window here of pit stops as well. I think they can make it to the stage on this fuel, but do you short pit, Kenneth, and come back in? I don't know. Maybe you can stand to gain more from that.
I don't know. If I was a driver, I'd just be scared no matter what. That's all I'm going to say. Eddie Smith and Curtis Kelly. Front row restart, lap 115. Reedy with a sizable push. Smith up front in the chase back to turn 1.
Batsman already trying to get there and not able to do it. Peel drops down to break up the 30 of Wyatt Brackett from getting to the back of Colin Forrester. Now Curtis Kelly, Austin Reedy get connected on the outside into 3. It's a big surge here for Fast Banana back to the point.
Kelly and Reedy in that tandem, they work together to take over the lead. Smith will have a statement to respond on the inside. He's got Forrester there to push, but several more diverse drivers at the top of the racetrack. Chris Progar, Lawson Peel, Austin Shoemaker among those in that outside lane, keeping Reedy ahead.
Reedy just had a little blink there, and that checked up his teammate on the outside. That's going to allow Eddie Smith the momentum. That just 1 second blink gets rid of the draft for the outside line, and now Curtis Kelly has to re-guess where his teammate's going to reappear.
And there goes the inside lane again. Oftentimes that outside lane will try and try again. That bottom line still the dominant one to beat. Only 4 cars up there. Everyone is dutched down or ditched down to the inside lane as Kelly and Reedy tried to play somewhat of a who's got me right now. And it seems like they've got each other up at the top of the racetrack. Smith still in control. Forrester second. Wyatt Brackett third. Zach Wilson fourth. Charles Stevens a race high fifth with Lawson Peel, then Austin Reedy, then Sean Kalis, Curtis Kelly, and Chris Shoemaker, who are top 10 cross of the line lap 118. And if we know anyone is the aggressor in this race, it's been that Ford Mustang of Zach Wilson. When does he pull out of line? When does he get someone with him to help?
I mean, when does he go 3 wide again? I mean, he's done it more than anybody else, I think, on this racetrack. He's willing to do those gutsy calls, and especially on cleaner tires, newer tires, it's been easier for these guys to keep their lines and run smooth through. We got to be careful, though, because through the quad ovals, that's where it's went wrong several times here tonight. Looks like single file all the way back to the 10th position. Austin Shoemaker on the inside. Reedy finally gonna get some momentum back going. But that connection blink, I think even Curtis Kelly at this point is saying, I don't know, man. It's just until this clears up, I gotta go my own way.
Yep, everyone's seemingly avoiding that inside lane, or outside rather. Only Austin Reedy, Chris Progar are those to attempt a highline charge and hoping that someone will join him. Thankfully, some space generously donated by Chris Shoemaker and Curtis Kelly. They opt for the inside lane, Reedy and Progar, if they do lose all of that momentum. I guess it was a message sent from that last caution that maybe we shouldn't go door to door this early in the stage. Still about 40 laps left and still a long run that stands in between them and that second stage coming to a close at lap 160. So the motto right now, stay clean, stay low, and stay out of others' ways. Do not cause a crash. That cannot be said for those that are running 16th and 15th on back. Justin Winters is patrolling a heap of cars, going door to door about 4 to 5 rows deep. And we've got a ton of guys in here. Joe Sanchez, Garrett Brown, Brad Fulham, Justin Erm. Several of those guys who have been involved in incidents tonight are those who have just spent a bulk of this race at the back of the field.
Yeah, I think right now this pack's trying to sort out who has the best car, who can pull us up to the front, because if you have a car that has damage, you really shouldn't be leading this group. And there's probably at least 7 or 8 in this pack that have some form of damage. You can see Huffman back there, Reeves also. The 20 of Herb got caught up in some stuff earlier in this race. Looks like the 16 of Brown. So damage on any part. If it's on the front end, you definitely don't want to be leading this. And if you have a good enough car to lead it, you got to hope that somebody behind you has a good enough car to push you.
The problem is Winters and Kunkel, they are wasting the most fuel now that they don't have any cars in front of them to give some draft and offer some potential fuel-saving opportunities. And, you know, for us as broadcasters on iRacing or even in real life, it's a little hard to understand the anatomy and mentality of a race car driver, whether it be in the real or virtual world. But you understand that at these super speedways, if you're that first car in line, you're wasting the most gas in a run that possibly could come down to the wire when you look at the fuel window as we look on board with Sean Kalis pushing through to the top 5. But Bradley, in your honest opinion, how do you balance this if you're a guy like Eddie Smith or even those in any lane that you're the front car in? How do you balance saving that gas and being that car in front, wasting the most gas in comparison to everyone else?
At some point, you're going to have to drop behind a guy, and hopefully that guy sticks with you. You don't get left out to dry. Eddie Smith right now, he's probably burned at least 7 or 8 tenths more of a gallon of fuel overall in this run because he's been out front. We just came in and topped off, but by the end of this thing, he can be a lap or 2 shorter than everyone else, and that's where you got to correct. You got to fall in line behind somebody and might have to give up the lead. I know it's the safest place on the racetrack for the most part. You just got to make that decision at some point that, yeah, oh, we got cars in the wall. That was Progar up there, and it looked like maybe Peel got a piece of it as well.
Lawson Peel falling back quite a bit. He was one of those drivers on the outside lane. It appears they got a bit hiccuped after Progar tucked the outside wall. And Progar, in turn, will fall way back from these guys. He is 13th place. Surely Justin Winters and company 4th on back can pick him up, but they'll be going so fast that may just leave Chris Progar out to dry.
They have single filed out though, Kenneth, and that's part of what they needed to do. That's going to help a little bit, but again, that goes back to how many damaged race cars are running in this group and who wants to push the issue really. You've already got your car tore up. Do you want to get aggressive and try to force your way back up here to this lead pack? We know that a lot of the carnage has started right around the 10th position tonight.
All they want is not to be involved in another one. These guys have been lucky enough that these crashes haven't taken them out of the race. And in their mentality, they want to stay alive. So single file it is the answer for most of the field. Those who are deciding to throw away the Scantron, Wyatt Brackett, Curtis Kelly. Now the car tertiary on the outside lane. Austin Riddy, 3 of them. The Fast Banana Toyota Camrys, they want to link up with their teammate, Colin Forrester, the Las Vegas winner from earlier this season, who sits in 2nd just behind Eddie Smith. We may understand that if Fast Banana is able to grab enough momentum to get up to 2nd, Colin Forrester will look in that rearview mirror and say, there are my homies. He'll go up high and help the charge to get back the race lead with about 30 laps to go left in stage number 2. And this will be big just because, Bradley, you've got all 4 of the Fast Banana and Toyota Camrys in the playoffs. So as much points as they can get, they're seeming to put up a team effort just to get everyone in points-paying territory.
I saw a peek there from the inside. Zach Wilson got a little aggressive through that quad, but yeah, he goes back. Fast Banana, all 4 of them in the playoffs. You've got to maximize points, especially at tracks where you can work together. You always want to kind of benefit the whole team. Now, in this last stage, it's going to kind of go every man for himself. Probably in the 20 to go mark, you're going to see these guys maybe split each other. And then, of course, you're going to have aggressive behavior from the other cars around them, trying to split those guys up. So right now, everybody's a little relaxed up here. And I think with only having 13, 14 cars, there's going to be less of a challenge. Fast Banana very easily could go up here and steal this stage 1, 2, 3, 4.
Plate's full, but everybody eating on Fast Banana. They'll look to surge up high. They're starting to catch up to what is 4th place, Charles Stevens. What a run by this Simrap Market Chevrolet of Charles Stevens, the man who started in 34th place. Dead last in this field, has gotten through all of the mayhem and everything in between to work his way up to a points-paying spot in this top 5. The old school Sunoco logo and just the screen to illuminate this room for Stevens. He is locked in, but he's got some pressure on the high side with Bracken and Kelly.
They're going to resurge here, slowly chipping away. It's quite the gap that the 84 of Chuck Stevens is leaving in front of him here. I don't know if he's doubting the speed on the bottom. Maybe he's getting a little tight from that pinch. But that's 3/10 almost that he's left in front of him, and he continues to fall back.
And for someone, though, as in Stevens, who's now losing touch of the top 3, that's the first time we're seeing this happen all race long. For Stevens, a man who has only made select starts in this 2024 season, he's only had 1 race where he's finished outside of the top 15. For a man who's joined late, a man who's finishing the Sunoco Cup Series season in its last campaign, you'd say it's pretty impressive for Stevens to start off with the competition that harnesses this series and to be able to get top 15s in almost every single start. And this may be the best finish for Stevens as long as he can hold on to it. He's got some help from a fellow Simrap Market Chevrolet in the form of Shane Wyatt, another rookie driver in this series who has run more races this year, but ultimately they're starting to go hand in hand with Fast Banana and their pressure from up top. Wyatt, remember, started outside of the front row. We peeked in on a bit of the front end damage he picked up at one point in this race, but that seems to be solved. The pointy Chevy nose seems to be back intact, and Shane Wyatt has said, let's go back to it, now inside the top 5.
Yeah, and Shane Wyatt making the Sweet 16, I believe. So that it's another good thing. We have a couple rookies up there that made the playoffs, and that's impressive in itself. I think this is probably the most stacked rookie class that Sunoco has had since it was founded. I know, season 1, of course, everyone is considered a rookie, but we had 4 or 5 guys that were constantly up front, challenging some of the veterans and the legends of the league for wins. So Shane Wyatt done a phenomenal job, and like you mentioned with Chuck Stevens and what he's done to put together that string of top 15s, even though he's had a limited schedule. Very impressive group that came in here for their first year, and to have the success that they're having, it just goes to show you how competitive it is in this league. At any point, a new guy could come in and just disrupt everything you know about it.
Their strength is immeasurable. Cannot count that out at all. And 3 rookies in this series are all playoff drivers. Eddie Smith, Alex Huffman, and the aforementioned Shane Wyatt, all of them bearing yellow stripes on the back of their race cars, but putting it up with the best and the veterans in this series, and with a viable shot, all 3 of them at a potential Sunoco Cup Series championship. Shane Wyatt going into this first playoff race, 13th, that last driver, or the first driver that would be out, and the last driver of those in the top 13, so he's just below the cut line. He's in a direct fight with Justin Erb and Chris Shoemaker if we're not talking extra playoff points garnered throughout the year. And I'd say given the rest of the competition, other than maybe a Wyatt Brackett who he's fighting for position with right now, he's got a spot in the top 12, and that is the best step that you can make in a first playoff race of your Sunoco Cup career at a super speedway. That is all you can really ask for, a decent race. And here's a look further back in the field. Sean Kalist is one of the last cars in that first group, but then James Kunkel is the first man of the second group. You pointed it out, they're all single file, so no more lost time, but it may just plateau given the fact that they don't have enough numbers back here.
Yeah, it's 10 seconds, and it's climbed a little bit each lap, probably about 4/10 slower every single time they go through here. Last time by, Eddie Smith ran a 30 flat, and these guys are, just barely in the 30.4 bracket. That's got to be frustrating, because even though you're single file, you're pushing like crazy. You probably tried every car combination, driver combination to try to make up this time. You continue to see that relative climb now over 11 seconds back here. It's just going to be a matter of we need the stage break to get caught back up.
But we may be in for another green flag pit stop. Just given the way this stage has gone, we had that yellow midway through. We maybe question if these guys can even make it for the rest of the stage. And with now about 18 laps to go until stage 2 concludes at lap 160, these guys are pushing 38 laps and counting on their stint. For some, it is different. You have to look further back in the field to account for that. But for the most part, these guys got to go 18 more laps on a set of their tank, so it'll be 56 total they will have to run, and that might cut it close for fuel strategy. I'm not sure if they'll be able to make that window.
I'm really worried about the guy that's led all these laps. Eddie Smith has been out here out front for pretty much every single one of them since they took the green back on lap 110. So it's that's not good. If you're the 87 right now, you're probably already sideways for, I believe that's Kelly, into the wall. Caution's out.
Curtis Kelly in trouble. The single man spinner. Caution waves at lap 143. And there are worries eliminated about green flag pit stops at this juncture of the race. Kelly escapes with minimal rear end damage, but one of the strongest cars all night long gets caught up in a crash. And this happened on the back straightaway. Mind you, second car, white and blue machine, on the outside of the pack here with Wyatt Brackett, that black and gold Toyota Camry. The first man, Kelly, is the second. I think it just bobbled Kelly.
A lot of checkups there.
Bobbled Brackett out of line, and I don't know how Kelly got out of shape in that.
I saw this happened ahead of him. Back it up one more time. You can see, I think Brackett gets a little out of shape, hits.
Oh, teammate help from both sides.
Yeah, that's a weird scenario, that whole thing.
Another look at it. Kelly, remember, the second car on the outside lane. He'll tap Wyatt Brackett off the corner. That sends Brackett sideways, and in the midst of the checkup, Kelly gets tapped by his teammate Austin Reedy. And to finish off the spin, Austin Shoemaker was there on the bottom side. Here's a look on board from Kelly.
He checked up before that. What was the checkup there from Kelly? Did Brackett get loose? Yeah. Okay, there's the checkup. That's what sends him sideways. So that's just a domino effect, and that's what super speedways are. I mean, you're nose to tail, and one guy lifts just even 2 or 3 miles per hour, and it sends him sideways. It's just how it is.
It's all a domino effect, specifically at these super speedways. The margin of error is so small. So you make one mistake, you get someone sideways in front, and you check up, well, no guarantee that you're out of that safely. The car behind you may not anticipate that checkup. They'll get behind you, and that stack up between teammates, too, is what is going to cause this most recent yellow thrown at lap 145. And we've got pit stops, and we've got alternate strategies. Remember those up front? Colin Forrester, Zach Wilson, Chuck Stevens, Shane Wyatt, Wyatt Brackett, and everyone back through 8th place. They have stayed out. They were part of that initial front pack. 9th place is a car on 33 lap old tires and on fuel. Brad Fulham, who rolled off the grid in 33rd, and we have not seen this colorful Ford Mustang for most of the night. Eddie Smith and everyone behind, well, they have taken their cars down pit road for a set of Goodyear Eagles and a splash of fuel. So for the first time, we've got fully alternate strategies from those in the front, those in the back, with 15 laps to go and counting left until stage 2. I'm not sure how that will matter a lot, Bradley, but track position will certainly fluctuate when we get that next yellow at the stage break.
Yeah, it's a weird scenario now for guys like Eddie Smith. He probably had to come down. He wasn't going to make it to the end of this stage, so he had to come in and top off with Sunoco race fuel. But Colin Forster sat back and drafted him for the entirety of that run. It was a full 40 laps or so that they ran, and yeah, for him, he's probably in the good now with this caution. Zach Wilson, Shane White, a lot of these guys were just drafting around, so they're probably good to make it, but then when they have to come down pit road, it's going to inevitably give the lead back to Eddie Smith, Lawson Peel.
So the restart shows as follows. Colin Forrester has led a ton of laps tonight. He'll have the opportunity to lead a bit more and a chance to pick up what will be his third stage win of the season if he can hold on. Zach Wilson, strong driver all night long. He's on the outside of the front row. Green flag raises from nighttime Atlanta Motor Speedway. Forrester, the control car, back to turn 1.
So this is payday right here. This is another points opportunity, and for the top 10, they're going to try to hold on to this older tires, low on fuel, and you're already seeing them wiggle around there as Colin Forrester tagged the apron out of 2.
Keep in mind, outside, less cars, only 3, now counting more. Lawson Peel will join the fight. Shane White flushes down low. He'll beat Zach Wilson off of turn 4. Colin Forrester picks up 3 laps to go until, or rather 13 laps to go until stage 2. Wilson up high, back to turn 1 up top.
Wilson kind of gets left out to dry there. Nobody elected to go with him early on this restart. Now he's got Reedy behind him, and Lawson Peel, that high line, just trying to get going, but it hasn't yet. How about Chuck Stevens now in the second position, looking to capitalize. He's going to have probably the best points in this stage if he can hold on to it.
Same song, different verse for those up high have yet to find an entryway to the top spot. Zach Wilson is still pushing onward strongly with Austin Reedy right behind, but the top spot held by Colin Forrester. Now here comes up Wyatt Brackett. He'll leave some space. He'll go up high looking for second.
Fast Banana trying to control both lanes again. This is about 10 to go here, and this is where they have to start controlling the high and low lines. But they do open. Oh, the 30 hard into the wall. Big crash across the quad.
And there's Peel, Wyatt, Wilson, and others taken out in this big crash in the quad oval. Shane White picking up now. More stack in. Whittington, Kelly, and Brackett in the middle, still trying to get out of it. It looks like Chris Progar was also involved. And a monumental crash taking out heavy hitters tonight from Atlanta. Wyatt Brackett, maybe the biggest loss of them all in this one. And it all starts from this mishap on the high lane off turn 4.
His teammate came up and Wilson didn't lift. I mean, he shouldn't have anyway, but with Forrester coming up high, Brackett had so much momentum, and you can see right here, this bottlenecks there with Whittington trying to squeeze through that hole. But I don't know. I think right now, if you're Wyatt Brackett, you're probably a little bit upset that your teammate cut you off like that. I don't know. Would you call it the cutoff? I mean, he was a lot slower.
Not sure if it was a cutoff. Just Forrester at the top obviously doesn't have as much speed to carry. Look at how far he pushes up ahead in turn 4. He goes up high just to bring his teammate with him, but the speed difference is so big. They stack up, and it's Zach Wilson that gives the tap to Brackett inadvertently, sends him hard into the quad oval wall, and then brings Wilson careening down the speedway, getting Shane Wyatt, and in turn they catch Lawson Peel, who was about to escape from the high line as Peel came back down in that second peak from the quad oval. They catch Garrett Brown and also Chris Progar and several others who were trying to just scurry away from the incident. Jesse Whittington trying to find the hole in the wall late, but he went in there way too fast, gets clipped, and he also gets a piece of this crash.
You can see it. He has a long time here to get on the brakes. He thought maybe those guys were going to wash down, and Pardo is outside. I believe that was Schoonover. Ran out of room to go.
So the big list of drivers involved in the carnage: Wyatt Brackett, Lawson Peel, Shane Wyatt, Chris Progar, Zach Wilson, Jesse Whittington. And it appears that's mostly the list. There's Alex Huffman, who somehow got away from the accident. He says Code Brown in the YouTube chat. Barely got by. The smoke just came up from right in front of him. And for many of those involved, it seems as though their nights are over. Wyatt Brackett has taken his Toyota behind the wall. He came into this race 14th in point standings for the championship. As he will fall below the cut line still going into Richmond. Zach Wilson, who entered this race +5 to the cut line, he may be kicked out of the top 12 before Richmond starts. Lawson Peel is keeping his dog in the fight, but his car is much more bruised and battered than it ever was throughout this race. Remember the caution that he was involved in earlier tonight. He got that car perfectly fixed. This time around, it's not the same story. So your two-time Sunoco Cup champ will have to putt around with a pretty damaged SpaceX Chevrolet Camaro.
He's got time to get this thing repaired, but I don't know that you can almost see it looks like a Pontiac on the front end of that thing. It's got a really pointy nose. He's going to come back in and get another repair. Maybe he has enough time, but the suspension looks like it's still okay. Maybe a little offset there, but mostly aerodynamics here that's going to play the factor at this racetrack.
Yeah, we almost brought up that topic several times, Bradley. You know, it's a super speedway. At the end of the day, aerodynamics are going to matter. You're going full throttle, you're in the draft, and you can get saved a bit if you've got some damage and you're pushing a car. But if you're the leader and you want to be the leader, at the white flag going to the checkered, that damage is going to slow you down a couple miles an hour, and that makes a big difference over a long period of time. Some others who picked up damage, it appears Austin Reedy with a bit of front end damage on his Camry. It probably should not affect him too much, but we'll find out. He is the inside car on the third row for this next restart lap 154. Clock at the start-finish line, 6 laps to go until stage 2 is over. Colin Forster, the race leader. Chris Shoemaker in the fight with Chuck Stevens for P2 right behind him.
You can kind of see there with some of the cars that do have damage, how much of a gap built up there already on the start. Eddie Smith trying to get the 84. 2 rookies trying to work, and now Eddie Smith decides to go to the inside line. Interesting move there. He can't quite decide where he wants to be. He does have a damaged car with Shoemaker in front of him, so he's in an interesting spot of where do I go, who do I work with. He's got 2 teammates up here that are definitely going to get together with 5 to go in the stage.
And the numbers aren't limiting with all the cautions we've had thrown tonight. How many drivers have been caught up in incidents? Sean Kalis getting pushed up high. He'll join Chuck Stevens. This short amount of drivers that are up on the top lane on board with Forster. The push from Shoemaker. They'll enter the final 4 laps until stage 2 is over from Atlanta. Austin Reedy, a bit of a buckle. He gets the push from Austin Shoemaker. Now James Kunkel wants to look at a race win, or a stage win rather. He'll go to turn 1, leader on the outside lane.
I saw a little moment there with Smith. He got loose, checked up. Justin Erb cut him a break there, but they went through the quad oval a lot slower than they predicted on that inside line. I don't know if it was because of the front. Maybe the 14 is having some problems. He could be getting hot here with all that damage on the front end.
He stays in 3rd, though. No shift of position from 1st through 5th. Now it's a 5-car length lead over James Kunkel, the M&M's Toyota Camry, the leader up high. They'll join one more. Here's Justin Erb moving his way up top, looking for an entryway.
Remember, this was the group that was running way back just a moment ago, and they weren't able to catch up to the front of this group, so you got to wonder, is that damage in this back half of the front field is just maybe not able to get up to speed enough to get that outside going. Muscarella's going to try it now from about the 6th position, but nobody has been able to get up there. Once they step out of line, they kind of go stagnant.
Mind you, a ton of the guys, Bradley, that were involved in the big crashes we've seen over the night, they have been the most aggressive, the most brave at trying to push up front. Now we're getting those guys who are coming out of the curtain. Here's Alex Muscarella, the winner from Daytona, to get him into the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs, rolled off the field in 27th. He's worked his way up to P6. He may have another join in front. Austin Shoemaker flirts with a high side appearance, but here we go, final lap in stage 2. Forster, the race leader.
And split 3 wide. Smith gets the 14 of Shoemaker up out of the way. Now it's Swavely giving him a shove, but it looks like for the top 3, Fast Banana pretty much controlling it. It does the 4 step out here as Shoemaker content with second. Reedy to the outside and across the line. It's Colin Forster.
Colin Forster captures the stage win. Here from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway, they slow up and the yellow is thrown. Chris Shoemaker, second. Muscarella able to skirt under for 3rd place. And many guys who are under the cut line getting some points. Justin Erb, who was barely above going into tonight, get some well-needed positions and some points to go along with it. And some other drivers at the back end of the top 10 finding their way through. Eddie Smith, Austin Reedy, and how about those underdogs moving their way through? James Kunkel, Justin Erb, Sean Kalist, among those who finished stage 2 in the top 10. I'm sure there was a sigh of relief from many, Bradley, that this one is over, given everything that's gone on over the 100 laps.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you could see it kind of getting sour there on that last lap. The 14 of Shoemaker got shuffled out. He went from about the 4th or 5th position all the way back to 13th before that stage ended. That was all within a lap. So that just goes to show you how much damage that car probably had.
So the zoo is open. All the animals are in. Pit stops for seemingly everyone in the field. Cross of the line, lap 161. And we will bring in the final stage, which should be over under about 95 laps, you know, plus or minus 5 laps or so, given just the increment. We come back to the green flag in. Colin Forster enters pit lane, and he'll bring up the jacks on the right side of the race car. Several others coming in. Garrett Brown with damage. Brandon Banks the same. So is Jesse Whittington. Justin Erb only goes in for 6.4 seconds. So his Chevrolet is the first one to exit pit road. No call for tires, only the fuel. Alex Huffman in second. Colin Forster, who was first coming in, is third heading out.
These are 2 very damaged cars. Huffman is just trying to salvage the day at this point. I know he's been involved or close to involved every single incident on this race tonight. You can see right here, he's got a lot of it fixed, but is that car going to be up to par? I gotta ask. It looks pretty clean. He might be all right.
You know, some drivers have different definitions of what dead means in iRacing. Just the same as pro drivers have a different idea of wrecking, which for them, it's just being slightly loose. But for most people, it's literally wrecking. Alex Huffman has said twice in the YouTube chat that his car is dead. And to be fair, yes, he's picked up damage over the course of the race, and it looks clean right now. That Mustang is still prancing forward without that many bruises or scratches on it. So maybe dead isn't really fully dead for a driver like Alex Huffman. His car continuing to push forward. He'll be second on this restart. We won't take a break. We'll stay with you here on VSPEED as we'll double them up and get ready for the green flag restart. We have about 96 laps to go until the end of this race as we cross the line next time by and get the green flag. Bradley, what are your thoughts here? Many of the big guys have been either taken out or have picked up some sort of damage. You've got a different cast up front. Who do you look for the most to be the strongest off the restart?
Well, I see Erb and I see Huffman kind of sneak their way up here on strategy, but my thoughts are Fast Banana is going to sweep this race. I mean, they still have their whole team out there with the exception of Wyatt Brackett. So Brackett got stage 1. Forster gets stage 2. Maybe Reedy comes up here and gets the win. Maybe maybe it's just a 1, 2, 3 for those guys. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's just been controlled by Fast Banana and the way they've worked together all night.
But the problem is now they've got one less teammate to work with. Wyatt Brackett is out of this race, so you've only got 3 of those Fast Banana Camrys out there, and even then, separation is big between them. Colin Forster is the man up front, but there's Curtis Kelly back there. Austin Reedy is only 2 car lengths ahead. So the teammates not working well together right now just because there are a bunch of cars in between. A lot more diversity when you look at the team spread on this green flag restart. Stage 3 underway from Atlanta. Justin Erb into turn 1.
Forster already going to work. He's going to push on the back of the 20. And how about Huppy? I mean, he's holding his own. I think that car's okay. So whatever the definition is, it's fast enough to be up here on the outside. He had Kunkel giving him a shove there. And Eddie Smith's going to move to the inside up to 5th now. Alex Muscarella, you know, after that win at Daytona to seal the deal and get himself into the Sweet 16, he has really put on some confidence, and his racing has turned around these last 10 weeks.
Well, that's all you need is just a splurge of confidence to get yourself a fast race car, get yourself a great race. And for Alex Muscarella, who we've noted is struggling for most of the campaign, despite having some races where he appeared to be the last lap favorite. Muscarella with the 1 win at Daytona, and here he is now 3rd as Alex Huffman suffers what everyone on the outside suffers with, the lack of momentum. Justin Erb got shuffled out of line. Colin Forster, the new race leader here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and Erb and company trying their best to do anything to get this outside lane working, but to no avail.
Yeah, it hasn't worked, and I think the weather's playing some of a factor in that maybe it's not as loose down on the bottom, so they're able to push harder and keep the car down and keep it stable. Maybe that was what the factor was at the start of this run, at the very start of this race, and now it's not as unstable. So now that tells me if you're on the outside, you have to go down there and side draft these guys and pull them back a little bit.
That's what they're trying to do, but they need some more numbers up there. For now, they stick with the main 4. Now, maybe add +2 to that. Chris Progar, Austin Reedy, they'll be back there on the high side. So they'll offer a bit more assistance, but not as much as these guys would like to catch up to Colin Forster, who has been one of the safer drivers all night long and have that security knowing that the guys up top are still 5 to 6 car lengths back. They won't have an effect on Forster's race at this moment in time, but they're starting to catch up just a little bit. Muscarella flirts a little with the high side. Erb starting to build the momentum out of turn 4, but it's all about the organization is what these outside lines have been lacking over the course of the race. Now they've got it. A look on board here from the car on the inside. Alex Muscarella and Eddie Smith.
I love this shot in real life, but I got to work on that. I got to refine that one a little bit. We need more of that nose angle, I think, on that camera to see what's going on in front of these guys. It would have been awesome to have that camera at Darlington.
It definitely would have, to see everything happen as these cars go down low, then high up on the racetrack, and almost getting a bit of that Darlington stripe. And here is the outside lane, pushing in turn 1. Erb gets control of the race lead in turn 2.
Good push there from the Tanner Huffman. I'm impressed with what that car is able to do, even though it's been dead twice here tonight. He's going to give a big shove to Erb and get him to the point, almost clear as they went into 3. I thought the 20 was going to drop down and try to control that bottom, but he gets loose there out of 4.
They come off the front straightaway. Justin Erb by a nose at the start-finish line over Colin Forster. That bright blue Toyota Camry staying put down low. He's got the push from Shoemaker down low into turn 2.
So the difference here for Forrester is he doesn't have a teammate that's around him to do anything. He's lost Brackett. The 71 of Kelly is all the way back in 18th. Then you have Reedy, who's back in 10th. There's just no help for the 31, and that's what this whole field has been trying to do all race long, is split those guys up.
Call it a banana split. Now they have been at this point of the race. Alex Huffman down low ditches Herb up top, and Alex Huffman, the Talladega winner from earlier this season, takes control of the lead at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Herb will not go away without a fight, but there's the Allen's Legacy Racing teammate of Huffman, Justin Winters, that orange and black Ford Mustang Dark Horse on the outside. Third in that outside lane.
Oh, what a momentum swing there. The 45, Okonkwo went down, controlled the inside line, then came back up with Herb and controlled the outside. That is playing both lanes to a T through the quad oval. Nicely done.
They'll stay side by side. At the entry of 3 and 4, rising up off the corner, the outside has come back to life. The Home Depot Chevrolet, Justin Herb up in front by a car length. James Kunkel right behind. Justin Winters third up there with Chris Progar fourth. Austin Reedy fifth, and the line continues. They've got way more up there than they previously did off the restart. Herb will clear for the race lead, but does he go down low?
And no, I guess not. He thought about it. He's still thinking about it, but why go down there when you still have the point? I mean, the 45 is going to clear now.
And for James Kunkel, on a roller coaster throughout this race, started off 16th, ended up in the mid-pack for a good portion of this race. We saw him have some spotlight moments at the front, then drop to the back, then immensely in the mid-pack for most of the outing, and here he is back in control. But there's a wonderful move. Justin Winters swinging down low. He wants to tie at the race lead.
I was wondering if that was going to happen. Teammates are going to get together, and here he comes to the front.
And that's Allen's Legacy Racing at the inside lane in tandem. And the first time since we saw Fast Banana work together as teammates, Allen's Legacy Racing is going hand in hand. They want a position up front. Bit of a wiggle there from Winters. Tough shove by Huffman. Herb will stay up front. Back to turn 3.
Yeah, without that wiggle, I think they do take over the point. The inside has been a little bit better, but how about Kunkel keeping Herb up there? The 20 has led about 6 laps consecutively here on this stint. 10 laps total, and, you know, he came from 28th. He loves the lead at this point.
But he's only led 10 laps. His first sprints of being up front. Justin Winters wants lap lead number 1 to his name here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Winters has struggled throughout his 2024 Sunoco Cup Series campaign, joining Alex Huffman for this Allen's Legacy Racing team in honor of their friend Allen. They'll be nose to tail on the inside lane. Winters a snuff at the race lead.
Oh,
a bit of a hip check to Herb, and they stay door to door.
Wasn't intentional. I think Herb was just trying to pinch him and do that side draft and try to pull him back, and it worked there. That door check was enough that they got a 2-3 car length gap, and here comes Progar out of nowhere. He's kind of been quietly on the outside. He's almost past the 22.
You know what? He's got a ton of persistence, because we've counted several times in which Progar was that man on the outside, and he was victim of circumstances out of his control, but he will be the third of 3 cars that float down low. James Kunkel and your race leader, Justin Herb. So Allen's Legacy Racing, their run punctured quite a bit, and now here's Austin Reedy swinging up high. He wants 4th place.
This is good news for Fast Banana as they try to organize more cars back into this top 5, but as they do so, it's getting a little bit more chaotic. You can see more jostling around, and that's probably the fact that these tires are starting to let go. It's 20 laps into the stint now.
Well, this is still with a bunch of time remaining. 80 laps to go in this race from Atlanta Motor Speedway, and still at least 1 more pit stop to go. So you don't want to take yourself out of this one before strategy comes into the equation. Sean Kalis now mans as the car pushing Austin Reedy on that high lane. It seems like every now and then the top side gains all the momentum and then they lose it. Reedy is part of the group that's losing time right now. Alex Huffman on the bottom. A look on board from the SK Sim Racing Chevrolet, who's got a lot of time to make up as the top drivers are ahead by at least 5 to 6 car lengths.
Yeah, and what I worry about is Reedy starts to blink again. More connection issues for the 96, and that costed Kalis probably 4 or 5 spots. Where do you want to be here? I mean, I don't know that the 96 is the answer on this high line. he could be the pushing car, but when he's out front, it seems like one little blink and they lose 3 or 4 spots. That's happened a couple times tonight.
Well, does it change here as the Fast Banana teammate of Colin Forster gets up high. Justin Winters has took a route up high, at least a lane or so, and he's ducked out of line. It slowed everyone down low, and it's helping this outside lane gain a bit of traction. Your top 3 have broken away by at least a car length or so. Justin Winters will try and pick things back up as the whole field approaches one lap car. That's Joe Sanchez, car number 55 on the backstretch.
On board with Huffman, big check up here, and it's the 31s around.
Colin Forster in trouble. He mostly saves it. He does. Car keeps it together. Now he gets hit by Brad Fulham, and that will ignite the caution flag. Our strongest driver of the day, the Florida native of Colin Forster, involved in this spin, and the yellow is thrown with 56 laps to go. Or 76 laps to go.
The trends, the race trends that you talk so much about, and it always seems to happen to Fast Banana. They work so well together. They run the vast majority of the laps up front, and then things just start to fall apart at the end every time at these fast tracks.
We mentioned that the last 2 Atlanta Motor Speedway races, Forrester captured the pole, but had an average finish of 35th at this speedway. Tonight captures the pole, leads a ton of laps. In his race, not over by any means necessary, but surely hampered a bit. Yeah, it was a wonderful save on the apron. But it was Brad Fulham going for the spin and tagging Forrester along. That's what ignites the yellow. Watch how the hands work here from Forrester.
And he has it saved right here. Fulham just locks up the brakes there and slides into him.
Another look at it, this time from Fulham, the man who creates the yellow flag.
And Kayla's sideways. There's the 31. Fulham's just trying to go high and get around it. But they were saving these cars from the entry of 3. I mean, that's almost half a mile that they're just trying to get this thing under control.
You know, that's a last-second move by Brad Fulham to get out of harm's way. It looked like Forster was going to get out of the way naturally as this track was, you know, self-cleaning a bit. 28 degrees of banking, but no dice there. And now some more pit road decisions. Dustin Reeves going to be in the race lead. Austin Shoemaker behind. Justin Erb third. Austin Reedy fourth. And this race changes once more. Now, just to note, Reeves and Shoemaker took 6 to 7 second pit stops. So we'd imagine that they took no tires. Everyone else got 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and a splash of fuel. So it is all changing up. 185 laps in the books. Don't go anywhere. More Sunoco Cup Series playoff action from Atlanta. On the other side, Dustin Reeves, the current race leader.
What got into you? At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There is Max Papis in the Ferrari. As great a race as Ferrari has ever won.
Steering wheel for me has always been a sensitive spot. You know, there's a whole experience there that we're all trying to refine. Max Pappas, he asked me one day, he said, what can I do with a wheel? I said, well, with the new.
Back in Atlanta, the playoff opener for the Season 7 Sunoco Cup Series, Dustin Reeves and Austin Shoemaker, who took fuel only on the last pit stop. They lead this way into turns 1 and 2. Shoemaker has been ducked out of line, and now here comes Justin Erb. The help from nobody, but he will go all by himself. Now James Kunkel will be the second man up. Chris Progard the third. Justin Erb back to the control here at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Man, Dustin Reeves, nobody was willing to work with him on this restart. I mean, he got the thing going, had a great restart, and everyone is just leaving him out to dry here.
Well, he was the only car other than Austin Shoemaker not to take tires. The grip levels are different, not by much, but still a discrepancy between those two. Now Erb, the lead car. James Kunkel, the leader on the top side. Does he do anything with the top-loaded competition behind him? They stack up a bit. Eddie Smith bobbles a bit, entering turn 3.
They got Reedy down there on the inside. He's trying to help Reeves a little bit, but they're losing ground on the inside, and you got to wonder if Reedy's going to make a decision. Does he want to go up to the outside line and ride this train that's passing him now 4 cars by as Eddie Smith goes around? Huffman's going to be the next one in line, and Reeves just hasn't been able to get it going. They're pushing, they're doing what they need to do, but now...
And Colin Forrester goes sideways. He's in trouble. Middle 3 wide, ignites a crash. It is Garrett Brown and Jesse Whittington. They get the worst end of it. Caution flag raises almost instantaneously after the restart occurs. And here's the replay. Forrester surging through the middle, but loses the race car and gets Garrett Brown up high, then down low, gets Whittington at the very last second. A 3-car incident involving the man who was involved in an incident about 5 laps ago.
31 looked like a pinball bouncing through there. This is like 2 or 3 hits on the 16 before it snapped free. I know he made a little bit of an evasive maneuver here to get to the middle, but almost like he had to correct it once he made that move.
Split-second decision from Forrester. The onboard look will tell you the whole story in the fine print. Just goes through the middle, tries to get out of Chris Shoemaker's way. Didn't want to hook him into the outside wall, so instead creeps up. That's where he hooks the Season 1 champ of Garrett Brown. That's where Brown goes sideways and up into the outside retaining wall. And as he goes down the 28 degrees of banking, there lands Jesse Whittington, the Focus Fuel Chevrolet. The onboard look from him and his perspective. Oof.
You know, I think we need to pull Whittington up here into the booth because he's had the toughest breaks of any driver. He is stuck with it, but he has been caught up in, I would say, at least 3 cautions of, you know, just being a bystander. And he's went from, you know, a lap down at least at some point in this race back to the lead lap, now back on pit road with damage. He's been on it probably 2 or 3 minutes each time he comes down.
Well, let's see if we can get a word with the Chevrolet of Jesse Whittington on pit road right now to repair some of the damage. And all right, well, there's a sound. There's a bit of fun despite the circumstances. Jesse, I know that it's been a big fight to get to the playoffs first and foremost, but this first playoff race, you know, has been tough in its own way. How can you describe the way the night's gone so far?
Less than what I hoped. I mean, I know I felt like an idiot earlier. I was on the brakes. I ended up resetting my equipment because I was on the brakes and I was trying to miss a wreck and tried to shoot a gap. And man, it has gone far from planned. But got all my damage fixed now, so let's hope we can kind of turn it around now.
Far from planned seems like any super speedway race, and I know Atlanta turns that up probably by 100, giving the unpredictability of this track. And in this, given all the drivers that have been taken out, all the attrition that we've seen over the night, even despite the incidents you've been involved in, you still have a car that's able to run in the draft, able to run in the pack, and able to get some decent points or win after this whole race. So what do you think of now as you get back on the racetrack and as you pick up the field, get ready for a restart with maybe about 68 laps to go?
I mean, just try to miss the wrecks for the rest of the night. Hopefully save enough gas to make it to the end, and hope that we can come out with a good points day and jump above the cut line, because we're starting out the playoffs way below it.
Well, Jesse, we appreciate the time. We know the restart's coming up. Hopefully the rest of this race isn't as chaotic as the last 192 have been. We appreciate the time, and best of luck on the restart.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all.
That is Jesse Whittington, the driver for Full Lock Racing, getting ready for the green flag restart, dropping here at lap 193. Still a long way to go. And Justin Erb, despite the crinkle on his Chevy Camaro, leads the pack off the quad oval into turn 1 with Chris Progar right behind him.
Where did Erb get that front end damage? Was that from the last incident there? I would like to think it wasn't, because that happened so far back, but I don't remember the 20 car having that much nose damage. So something along these lines has caused this car heavy front end damage, and I don't know if that's going to be the lead car here for very much longer.
Well, how much time is he wasting by being up here with that damaged race car? So far, no negatives. Chris Progar settling right behind him, but he's wiggling all over the place at the apron of the quad oval. He was way out of line, but he keeps himself put. James Kunkel, Alex Huffman, Eddie Smith, your current top 5, and for the matter, no one on the outside lane other than 12th place Justin Winters. Everyone has stayed down low. Now one backs out of line. Brad Fulham, the 19 car, takes an effort up there, but there is no help.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for him, but he's probably feeling what's happening up here on this inside line. You saw how loose Progar got, and that could be because Progar's got a little bit more power, and he feels like he's just kind of pushing a wall at this point. And I see Erb holding his own. He's doing really well, but I think some of this is a product of guys just wanting to take some laps away, and they're content with not forcing the issue just yet.
And there's still at least a pit stop to go, even with that recent yellow that just came out. So strategy is definitely still in the cards as we move forward in this race, but all just single file. Everyone wants to stay as calm as possible. And I want to talk about two drivers who were at the back of the field for most of this race and have found their way through in the midst of the warfare. Brandon Banks in 10th, and his teammate Joe Sanchez back in 11th. Remember, Sanchez was at the mercy of being put a lap down not too long ago. Him and Banks suffered an end-of-line penalty from race control to start this race, surely for missing the driver's meeting before we drop the green flag tonight, and here they are.
It's more of that, perseverance and just steadily stand with it. No matter what happens, you know that there's still a lot of laps left, and it's kind of the benefit of running these full-length races, where a lot of leagues that we broadcast here on VSPEED, a guy gets caught up, and at the halfway point, they only have 40 to go. So this kind of helps when you get things early. You can come back on it. You can see it right here. They're up into the top 10 for probably the first time in a long time.
Both of them are playoff drivers, but in very different situations. Joe Sanchez entered tonight +7 on the cut line, 4th in playoff standings. Remember that win that he picked up earlier in the campaign at the last great Coliseum, Bristol Motor Speedway, that got into the postseason. Then his teammate Brandon Banks had to point his way in, came into this one 15th in standings, tied with Justin Erb for that cut line spot. And as it stands, he may still be beneath the top 12 just because of how strong Justin Erb's performance has been all night long. But given the bad luck of guys like Shane Wyatt and Wyatt Brackett, things may not be over for Brandon Banks in this opening playoff race just yet. Keep an eye on those two Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets as they maintain the inside lane. Chuck Stevens has found the way to lead the group up top. He's got some decently sized help in the form of Sean Kalis, then Alex Muscarella, Justin Winters, and Ray Rogers. Add on another. Chris Progar makes the move up high.
That's going to be a heavy checkup, though, here for Progar. They're really going to have to check up on the outside to get him into this line. And I think Progar is either getting hot or has noticed that the 20 is just not up to par, not up to speed fully, and maybe he's going to try to take away the lead from him.
Now with this checkup, it results in the outside lane having to back up, and they go through the ebbs and flows again. Stevens is going to have none of it. He wants in position down low. He gets it. Almost looked like it was going to split him 3 wide, but the outside lane loses one, and they stay with Progar up the road. But for the most part, that inside lane has the dominance on board with the 7 Chevrolet of Progar. There's a look with Kalis right behind, and all those cars that follow, it is pretty much evaporated, and Progar gets pushed up high.
I think Fallon got loose there, cutting the quad. To go back on the replay and take a look at that. Progar was on the outside. They had momentum, and I saw just a little bobble here. Yeah, I think Progar maybe came down too far.
Excuse me, coming through. That was close.
They made it.
That was very close. And many close calls throughout tonight's race, specifically in this quad oval section where it widens up a bit. They've got a flat apron that is paved all the way down. You could theoretically move your car down there, but then it narrows up the entry of turn 1. There's a damaged Lawson Peel. 2-time champ will be put a lap down here. And he is 23rd. He's going to hope for a yellow flag to fly. He is pretty much the only lucky dog candidate apart from Shane Wyatt, but Wyatt in his car is 4 laps down and counting all by himself. So Peel, who joins this group in the draft, may be able to stop the bleeding quite a bit, end the hemorrhaging, if you will, and survive with all of the bonus points he's picked up throughout the campaign and stay above the top 12 after tonight.
Well, if we get a yellow and he can avoid it, he is the first car a lap down. Shane Wyatt is 4 laps down, so the 12 appeal will get that free pass. But he has to avoid, if we do get that yellow, it could very likely happen in front of him, as he has probably about 13 cars in front of him.
Well, the good news is he can just hang in the draft. So if a caution comes out naturally, whether it be up here or not, then Peel does have the free pass. But I guess you play that risk, right? Staying in the draft with the first group, then if they crash up the road, Peel has the task of getting around it. And getting around it hasn't been that easy tonight. So keep in mind on how that all shapes out. Colin Forrester, the onboard look with his Camry, despite all odds, he is 13th place. So give him credit for keeping in this fight, even though the attrition has certainly helped him track position-wise. He desperately wants to get back up and search for his 2nd win of the season, 3rd career in his Sunoco Cup Series run. Chris Progar, in the meantime, snags away the race lead from Herb. He's got help from Kalis and Muscarella. They come down low and make it 1, 2, 3. Chevrolets at the front.
Yeah, it took a while. I think the 7 stepped out there a little early to try to get that run. But once they got the momentum swing, with Justin Herb, again, with that damage, he's probably going to ride a little bit better now. He'll be tougher to pass because he's got cars in front of him, and so that damage isn't going to be as noticeable. But Kunkel, he took over pushing after the 7 stepped out, and they maintained it for a while. I think it was just inevitable, especially when that outside finally got organized.
And for Progar, you know, got to give him credit for staying in it despite everything that's gone on. You know, in an outside lane where it can be so easy to get tired of the ebbs and flows of not being able to get up to those at the front of the field. But in the slim moments that you do have a chance to push forward and get a big run, Chris Progar has stayed faithful to the top along with Kalis and Muscarella. They reap the rewards now. 1, 2, 3 here in Atlanta with about 52 laps remaining. We know that there's enough time left in this race for at least one more pit stop, whether it be under green or under caution. Every time we have approached any zone for green flag pit stops, a yellow has come out at that moment, eliminating any of those stops under green flag circumstances. Does that change tonight at the end?
Interesting story. I think splitting this run is probably the best way to go, but like you said, we have trended to not having green flag pit stops at all tonight. It seemed like every time we approached that mark, something happened, even if it was a single car spin. Remember Colin Forrester and Sean Kalis? It's been kind of repeat for Fast Banana every time we get to that point where they could have pit together and maybe ran away with this race. One of those guys had problems, so just a weird set of circumstances, but it is good for some of these guys that got caught up in things early. They're able to recover their race, like you said, with Sanchez and Banks. They're back into the hunt of competing for this win. And a few others that, could benefit from another caution like Lawson Peel. So it's not all bad. We got very few compared to what we started, 34 cars, and we're down to about 24 that are up to speed.
Well, now I ask you, do you think we'll see green flag pit stops? Or do you think we'll have another yellow?
Did we jinx it, Kenneth? Did we want to do that to these guys? They've gotten close so many times. I think we'll just leave it at that. I don't know. I hope, but the trends, like you said, you've made me a very statistic and analytical guy since you came on here to VSPEED, so I might stick with the trends in my mind.
Hey, I like the stats. I like seeing the trends. I like to see where they go and what storylines they develop. Maybe you can call me too analytical, too statistical, but as someone who has never been that good at math, I don't know why I like the numbers so much. It just makes sense for me in my head when it comes to racing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good to have the stats to go back on, and it gives you that power play to maybe pick a driver. And I think here on VSPEED we shy away from that for the most part. But, you see right here with Lawson Peel what he's had to do. He's technically in the 5th position trying to get his lead lap back, basically.
Well, you know what? I'll give a nugget that is not statistical.
Oh, he's
as
around.
Peel gets turned by Brad Fulham. And there is the dagger potentially for Lawson Peel. He wanted a yellow to get back on the lead lap. Well, there's a yellow, but he's involved in it.
I mean, he was taking a damaged car to the front. Just a misalignment there with Fulham through the quad, and he gets hooked to the outside wall.
Many of these crashes we've seen originate from misaligned bumpers, and this is what happens in turn 1. Brad Fulham scoots up high, and he's already having enough momentum just to get his nose right to that quarter panel slightly of Lawson Peel Chevrolet. It's more than enough to send him flying into the outside wall. A look on board from Fulham.
We might have to watch this one more time from the high camera. I like to think that Fulham maybe had a car to his inside here and he wasn't able to follow the 12. Maybe he thought Sanchez was going to make that move. Forster gets a piece of it again. As if his race wasn't going bad enough for him.
Heavy rear end and right front damage for Forster. In fact, he brings his car down pit road. There's Fulham, and there is the singular car to stay out. Chris Shoemaker on 24 lap old tires. Actually, more than that, given the fact that he didn't pit for tires last time. And there's Shane Wyatt, who will pick up one of his laps back. He'll be 2 laps down from the field, it appears. Lawson Peel, given the fact that he was involved in the incident, I do not believe he will get Lucky Dog eligibility just because he was involved in that one.
And even if he did have it, he had to come down pit road. This thing was probably ready to blow up as hard as he hit that wall. So just the fact that that car was able to go back around and get to pit road on its own power, I think he still has enough laps, but if he wanted that lap back, he might end up 2 down here. Unfortunately, the iRacing service is really good about counting your incident points, and when you go around and you're the cause of the caution, and for good reason, because we know how race manipulation would go if you could get a free pass by bringing out a yellow, so iRacing makes you ineligible to get that lap back if you have any incident points. That even includes just maybe bumping a car when they check up. You don't necessarily have to go around. It's very difficult, especially when you're racing with the lead pack.
It is, and when they all pack together, any mishap, any mistake is going to create something larger than it would if it was at any other track where the field isn't as packed in together like sardines, and it isn't as reliant on one car making a mistake. For Lawson Peel, things have been sweet and sour here at this reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway. Finished 42nd after an expired engine hit him early in the race. That was season opener of season 6. And then when they returned for the playoffs that same season, he was able to knock off a top 15. Right now in trouble again, a lap down as he currently runs in 23rd. We'll see if we can grab Lawson Peel for a split second before we go green. Lawson, welcome to the booth. We know that it isn't under great circumstances. You've been through a lot tonight. How would you describe the feeling of everything that's gone on and how you're going to try to rebound here for the end?
Yeah, it's kind of to be expected, honestly. Just the way the racing is here with the checkups and, you know, the tires going away and getting into a four-wheel slides here. Just lots of wrecks and incidents going on. Been in the middle of a couple of them. The car's not killed here. We got about a minute of damage left. I need one more caution to get a lucky dog and just kind of get reset here, and I should be fine. So we're not out of it yet.
Well, Lawson, we hope you can stay in it. We know that car is moved, but not out just yet. Lawson, we appreciate the time, and best of luck on the restart.
No problem. About get it all fixed.
So Lawson Peel at the back end of this pack. Chris Shoemaker, Chris Progar. The Chris's lead us back to green from Atlanta, and Shoemaker is way ahead of anyone behind him. Will that bite him on the entry of the back straightaway? Progar and Herb in tandem tap the outside wall, but they've got themselves in the draft. Shoemaker a sitting duck out of turn 2.
He's going to have another surge on the inside, so even if he goes up here and blocks this, he's going to have it move down to the bottom, and Eddie Smith is also on the way. That was too much of a jump there for the 4. I think you got to kind of treat this like Daytona. You just wait until it says go green, and everybody is on the same page. It did not benefit the 4 to jump that restart at all.
Sean Kalis backed out. Now he's the second car up high. Eddie Smith, the rookie. Third car down low is Chris Progar. Maintains control of this one, heading into 40 laps to go from this virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. Does Herb make a move? The answer right now is a decided no. But Eddie Smith, the Ford Mustang behind, can make an effort with Justin Winters and Alex Huffman right behind him.
I think Herb is in the best place he can be with that front end damage. He never came down and got any of it really fixed. You know, they did pit, but he wanted track position, so as soon as they dropped that jack, he came back out on the racetrack, and you can still see the Chevrolet emblem on the front end of that is pushed in.
You know, I was looking at the last several laps when we were talking about Justin Herb's damage initially, and it had been punched in, but not as much as it is right now, and that just happened by itself. Herb was leading the race when he picked up the extra damage on the nose, so either the wind resistance or something pushed in the front bumper of that Camaro even further than what it was before. It has hampered him in the draft quite a bit, but luckily enough, he's got enough help to stay second in line and no pressure from anyone up high. Sean Kalis wants to make a fight happen for position inside the top 5. He's got Austin Reedy right behind, and there's the look on board from Alex Huffman running in P5.
So you can see earlier in this race when we were using the camera, they were probably a good half a car up high. You can see them progressively working closer and closer to that low line. And off the right-hand side of Alex Huffman, there's not a lot of room for error.
He's close. This side draft is what makes or breaks a run on either lane, and it's a game that you have to play very carefully with your fingertips. Sean Kalis getting as close as he is to those on the inside. He doesn't want to get into them, and he almost does to Justin Winters. Now an addition on the top. Rookie Eddie Smith wants a chance at the lead. He wiggles out of turn 2, but he's got the help to make it happen.
Kalis giving him a good shot there out of turn 2 to cause that wiggle, but Eddie Smith able to hold on to it. Progar and Herb holding on to the bottom. Herb gets a little out of alignment there with the 7, and this is going to allow Eddie Smith to take the point.
Oh, and the teammates got out of line. Alex Huffman, now the Ford Mustang in the middle, trying to stay there. It is getting tough back there, and even closer than from third on back. Chris Progar wiggled quite a bit, almost got into Austin Reedy, but it is Eddie Smith, Sean Kalis, the front 2.
Kalis wasn't clear. I think he self-cleared on Progar there. That was really close going into 1. It was a tight window, but Kalis eventually made it work. Here comes Reedy on the outside. Even though he blinked a little bit there, he's still got the momentum into turn 1.
Reedy, who has been back and forth throughout this race, has lost the bulk of his teammates over the course of the night. now has to do it all by himself.
Oh,
as
Kalis out
Sean
of line.
Kalis wiggles, he's out of line. Bottom in turn 3, Chris
And he's
Pogar will
sideways
hold up,
into
and he's hard
Muscarella.
into the wall, bringing Alex Muscarella with him, and Curtis Kelly. Yellow is out at lap 225. Kalis Sim Racing Chevrolet at the bottom of the racetrack to a halt, and he gets stuck on the apron transition. Kalis, who was running inside the top 5, buckled out of line and involved in the crash.
I mean, I saw the shot there from Progar, but I think the apron is what set this car just sideways. Yeah, and he overcorrected, but probably not predicting that that transition would upset the car that much, and Muscarella is just there. He was the safer barrier for the 90.
Call that another unlucky break for the Lowe's Chevrolet of Alex Muscarella, who for another Sunoco Cup Series week caught up in an incident that is not of his own doing. That was a hellacious hip check hit. And like you said, Bradley, there's nowhere to go in that situation. You're the car up there. You can't go any higher because there's the outside wall. You can't go any lower because there's the car. This is out of nowhere from the left side of the screen.
Oh. Imagine the force feedback in that wheel.
Well, I'd imagine if he was running a direct drive, that's ripping his hands off.
Yeah.
And that's a scary incident too, because as a driver, you don't see that happening unless you punch the button that has the iRacing driver in cockpit look left. But if he's not looking there, if he's looking only straight ahead and trying to push forward despite the contact down low, thinking that it's all okay, and all of a sudden he has a car speeding up the wall into him, and then in one split second, your race is over. So with the attrition level we've had tonight, we're going to add another to the list, and with the suspension damage on Muscarella Chevrolet, it may be confirmed that his night is done.
And I think Kalis is in the same boat as well. But, hey, guess what? Austin Peel's back on the lead lap after all that.
Hey, there you go. It's going to come down pit road for reassurance and damage repair. It told us a little bit earlier that he got most of his car repaired.
Yep. He had about a minute left. He was able to get 30 seconds of it there. Just a little bit more. He's trying to beat the pace car out. He'll do so and stay on this lead lap. James Kunkel back up on the outside of Austin Reedy. Eddie Smith, Dustin Reeves, Justin Erb. Impressive that the 20 with that damage is staying up here in the top 5. He's keeping it up here, but it's getting, you know, the wrecks have kind of worked their way higher and higher in positions. We started out this race, it was somewhere around 10th or 8th position. Now it's starting to happen up in the 5th and 4th position. And again, with the trends, Kenneth, how long until we see maybe something happen up in the top 3?
And you know what? Because of all the attrition, you know, there's no option for the wrecks to go anywhere else. They're going to be up front with all of the drivers that are left. In this case, it's Austin Reedy, James Kunkel. They will share the front row. Dustin Reeves and Eddie Smith, a pair of Ford Mustang dark horses. They'll be 3rd and 4th in row 2. Justin Erb with all that damage staying out. And Chris Progar on the inside. That's row number 3. Chris Shoemaker in his effort to escape the cut line. After the first playoff race, he shuffles out of what line? What has happened to Chris Shoemaker? I think he just had a bit of a moment. He'll pick himself back up. That was a scare. The lights off on the iRacing official pace car, but him and Justin Winters will be in row number 4, back to 8th place. Well, it's Austin Reedy, James Kunkel to the green flag restart. Lap 229 with 31 laps to go.
So, if you thought it was intense here, Kenneth, 30 laps to go, it's go time, and you got to protect that lead. Reedy knows that. He's the last of the Fast Banana drivers to have a shot at this thing, with Curtis Kelly having damage. He's set back in 17th. Colin Forrester, he has no help here. And this could be Reedy's first chance at a win since Sonoma.
You know, we've called his name all season long as the man on top of the Sunoco Cup Series point standings. But all of that was without a race win on the season. Remember, he is a man that did pick up a race win last year. It came courtesy of Richmond Raceway near the very end of the season. Reedy always takes a little longer to get acclimated to getting race wins, but here it may not be too late, and it can give him a spot confirmed into the round of 12. Eddie Smith right behind. Chris Progar in third. James Kunkel still the man on the high side.
And outside still yet to develop. You've got Reeves back up there. And so maybe he's found a friend to work with the 45 of Kunkel. Remember earlier Reeves had stayed out and got up front and nobody worked with the 6 car. Now it looks like he's got a momentum swing as he pushes out a little bit high there on the quad. Door check to the 4. Almost another one.
Those are 5 cars in the current top 10 that started 20th or worse. Reeves rolled off the grid 29th in his Valvoline Ford Mustang Dark Horse. The battle for third, heating up Chris Progar, the last car without any pressure from the outside. Then Chris Shoemaker, James Kunkel going at it for 4th place.
You can see that outside slowly picking up the momentum. Another door check through the quad oval. I think Kunkel's projecting Shoemaker to go a little bit lower through that portion of the racetrack, and he's hit him twice now in a row.
So you gotta be careful. Any bit of contact can send someone for a spin. Even a 1-car incident is enough to bring out the yellow Justin Reeves. Boy, he got pushed out of line by Justin Erb, and he held on to it. Now Justin Winters wants to look up high. His teammate in Huffman won't join him, but Winters controls the top. He'll sweep the teammates with him. Kunkel and Reeves also involved. They hit the wall hard on the quad oval. There's the yellow flag again, and the Allen's Legacy Racing teammates are taken out in one fell swoop.
I don't think he has to say anything in the chat this time, Kenneth. This one does look dead. This one's bad. The 22, the teammate coming across his nose, sending him to the outside wall. And I think he's lost the right front suspension on this car.
And there is Alex Huffman. His night is over from Atlanta. And his teammate Winters may also be out as well in the same lap. James Kunkel, Dustin Reeves taken out. Justin Winters has taken his Ford Mustang behind the wall. His night is over, and there's the look. Once more, Bradley, the trouble spot is the quad oval for these guys. This is going to be the next lap, so Winters is down low. There is the bright neon white and black Ford Mustang of Huffman down low. He's the brightest car on the screen. And they bobble a bit. Here's Winters who shoots up high. Wants the help from James Kunkel. He will get it, but it will cost him the race.
Yeah, I don't know. Kunkel hit him there, but they were right in that transition of the turn into the first part of the quad oval, and he had such momentum on the back end of that 22. Go on board here with the 45. You're going to see the closing speed here. It is a hard shove.
That's a car going about 5 or so miles slower.
Yeah.
Without any drafting help. As he shot out of line, there was a big gap between himself and the charging Kunkel. You'll see it close up right here. Here's a look from Reeves, who had nowhere to go on the incident.
He didn't even see it happen, really. He kind of just swung out to the outside naturally to keep the momentum, and then suddenly there's a car in his lap, and he has nowhere to go.
So both of the Allen's Legacy Racing Mustangs involved. Alex Huffman, his car seems to be out. Justin Winters has called it quits. Huffman is thinking about staying in this one, but it will be a lengthy repair on pit road. We'll see if we can talk to Huffman for a second. Sorry about that. Alex Huffman now joins us here in the Sunoco Cup Series broadcast booth. Alex, describe to us what happened there. I know it was all in an instant.
I mean, I had my cousin on the outside of me. We were running great, and he just got turned from somebody that wasn't holding the line, apparently.
And describe to us what is it so dangerous about running here at Atlanta, especially in that quad oval? I mean, this track has completely changed from what it used to be, a very hard to drive, 1.5 mile abrasive oval, now a smooth super speedway. And we've seen many of these crashes happen in that point of the track. So how dangerous has it been to just be in that quad oval side by side, and how does it result in these crashes that happen so quickly?
I mean, it's a lot narrower for sure coming through the tri-oval. It's sketchy as it is by yourself, single file, nonetheless side by side, but it's about elevated about 1,000 times when you have squirrels behind the wheel too. That makes it even worse.
Well, Alex, we know this one ending in a tough situation. Hopefully you can get back out there with the time that's left, but in turn, a tough break here, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward, and hopefully we'll see you at Richmond in a couple weeks' time.
Yep, thank you.
So Alex Huffman, unfortunate end to his night. He stays on pit road, but for what it's worth, car pretty much toast. So he'll get whatever damage repair he can get repaired at this juncture of the race, but with about, give it 23 laps to go, it seems as though his night is over, and he will lose a lot of these playoff points. And, you know, a lot of these yellow bannered guys taking out Bradley in crashes, you know, something we'd expect to happen in smaller numbers, but it seems as though a bulk of the playoff field have found some kind of trouble, and it has allowed some to survive, but many of them have fallen in this tough super speedway race under the lights in Georgia. We are prepped up for the restart with 23 remaining from Atlanta. Austin Reedy, the front row leader. A bit of a shake up there with Chris Progard pushing behind, but green flag restart here from Atlanta.
This race has not been kind to drivers with a yellow spoiler. You can see some of them surging back up here. You got Reedy, Smith, Banks. You know, Banks had problems earlier in this race. Before Shoemaker just falls back here a few positions. We're going to single file out here on the inside line.
Nobody wants a shot at the race lead, at least not now. You have to look all the way back to 12th place Curtis Kelly to find side-by-side action.
A lot of side-by-side.
Richard Swavely is getting pushed out 3 wide, and here is Lawson Peel, who got his lap back not that long ago. He's surging inside the top 15.
Was able to get all that damage repaired as well last time into the box, a full minute, so he should be up to at least somewhat up to speed. I know he's hungry to get back on the right side of this thing, and that's what makes you a champion in this series. Never giving up as he tags the wall. How about Curtis Kelly taking him to the front? Haven't seen Kelly up in the top 10 in a while.
I was wincing watching them go through that quad oval. They tapped the outside wall almost simultaneously with Kelly, Peel, and Sanchez doing it all in one fell swoop. And watch this, Lawson Peel has found his way inside the top 10. He looks off the back end of Curtis Kelly's number 71. Joe Sanchez wants something to work up high. He's got help in Brad Fulham and Colin Forrester. And there's Peel working all by his lonesome at the top side.
Left him out to dry for now. It looks like Curtis maybe just trying to play the draft and decide where to go. Herb is slowly catching back up. Here comes Whittington, a guy that's been involved in, well, everything here tonight.
Whittington, Stevens, the leader, and Justin Herb, that 4th car, and that Chevrolet in line. They will pick up Sanchez and everyone back there, so the outside line is back up and rolling. A look on board with Whittington as he sits 2nd behind Stevens. Peel behind has ducked to the low side. He stays behind Curtis Kelly. Austin Reedy still the race leader with 18 and now 17 to go when we cross the start-finish line.
How many drivers have we seen tonight, Kenneth? I mean, we've lost track of the names of people that have had something happen to them and came back to the lead lap to make the salvage of the day. Almost problems there, and the 94 involved in something again. Peel down on the inside.
Peel comes up the racetrack right in front of Brad Fulham. They escape mayhem. Whittington will lose touch of the pack in front, but thankfully, neither Whittington nor Peel will get out of this with a crushed race car.
Ooh. That's a close one.
Watch that. The tap from, it looked like, Justin Herb. sent Whittington out of control. Peel behind also getting out of it. And how did they not wad it up in turns 1 and 2 there?
No, I think Lawson Peel needs to buy a lottery ticket.
Oh,
he
my.
picked the perfect hole. And
Wow.
surprise, Fulham, you got to lift now. Heads up move by Brad Fulham to not just run over Lawson Peel.
Brad Fulham had his foot planted on the brake pedal, and that car stopped. You know, a lot of people complain that the next gens don't stop as well, especially on the ovals. Well, those are brakes at full capacity. Brad Fulham getting out of that and basically removing a potential caution that would have come out with about 15 laps remaining. As Eddie Smith now, the control car on the high side with Justin Erb behind, Brandon Banks, and Joe Sanchez third and fourth on the top lane. Remember, we've seen these guys go back and forth all race long with a chance, then no chance. Moving all at once and not at all with this top lane. Eddie Smith in that Tide machine wanting to make it worth for an effort to get his first career Sunoco Cup win.
After the little vacation, came back, got his head right. We saw a lot of success earlier in the season with a lot of top threes and a crossover on the nose, then that sideways from the 96. That's going to bring out another one.
Reedy spins, Rogers caught up with him. Yellow flag with 13 laps to go. Here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, the leader spun around by Eddie Smith.
And Smith heavy damage on the right side. I think he's done for the day.
You don't like to see that at the front. And once more, where does it take place, Bradley? The quad oval. So here's what happens. The T-Pace team, Camry of Reedy, and the Tide machine of Smith gets the hit after. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments, but we'll dial up what happens here. And this just looks like flat-out aggression, wanting the race lead, wanting to get it instantaneously, wanting to fake Austin Reedy out off of turn 4, and unfortunately not fruitful in his attempt to take away the top spot.
And I'm interested to see if maybe Smith was intending to just give a little bump draft. I know Reedy did step up to the outside, but we've seen that go wrong. You actually see Smith, he decided, well, if you're going to come up in front of me, I'm going to go to the middle. And then the aftermath there with, I believe that was the 7 of Progar on the outside. Maybe Justin Erb. I know that Smith got turned again in the aftermath. Might have to go on board with Eddie Smith here to get a story of what he might have been going to the middle.
Yeah, that was Justin Erb who got into him. That was after the yellow flag.
Yeah.
So an on-board look with Smith. You know, probably wanted the space that Reedy left behind by swinging that high to serve the block.
Yeah. But how many times have we have problems in the quad oval, you know?
A ton tonight. Most of the cars that were taken out in this race were taken out at that part of the track, and it started so early in the night. Remember lap 15, Steven Stepien getting turned around at this very part of the racetrack. And I don't know, it just looked like Eddie Smith there, Bradley, wanted the race lead, and it seemed like he cut down a little. But also
I didn't appreciate the block,
wanting the race lead.
Yeah, I don't think he appreciated the block. He was just ready to go to the front. Yeah, he moved down.
Low.
Yeah.
And this is after.
Yeah.
Justin Erb just catching the right side of Eddie Smith's machine, and now Eddie Smith has disconnected. So his night also over from Atlanta. Count another playoff driver in trouble. With Austin Reedy, doesn't pick up that much damage from the spin, so he will end up 14th when we get this next restart, barring any changes up front. But Reedy, one of the few playoff drivers that are surviving in this race. Lawson Peel behind, Jesse Whittington, who got shuffled out of line. Both of them did earlier. That did not cause a yellow. But boy, Bradley, has this one been a nightmare for the playoff drivers.
Yeah, if you have a yellow spoiler here tonight, you might want to take it off, because this track has been hunting those drivers all night. It hasn't been kind. You can see the field has dwindled down here to about 18 cars on their own power. Shane Wyatt, though. Oh, I guess I'll say it. It's not been kind to him tonight, so he's one lap down. He has a chance here with 10 to go to get back on the lead lap and maybe get some positions out of this. But again, it goes back to what Lawson Peel had to deal with earlier, not being involved in the next one if we do get another yellow.
And a reminder, if you are involved in a caution or a crash, if you're that car that will have the lucky dog position, you won't get that free pass because they'll count you as part of that incident. So the lucky dog candidacy will be removed and it will be eligible the next restart if you remain that first car 1 lap down. Shane Wyatt has to be careful. He's at the back of this group, so he will have the most time to react if something does happen. But given the way the field has changed so much over the last several laps, even under green, Shane Wyatt could be in the heart of the Hornet's nest when it all goes down. Chris Progar, the control man on the restart. Chris Shoemaker right behind him. Justin Erb with all that nose damage, a little sluggish on the start. Back to turn 1 with 9 laps to go.
And Dakota Curtis is shaking our hand here in the chat. We've been saying his name, and I think he's pointing to us on what happened to him tonight. Can't say that we're entirely responsible, but I will take credit for some of the things. I mean, we mentioned names, and it seemed like right on cue things have happened.
No, I plead the fifth. I don't want anything bad to happen to any of these drivers. It's just a matter of circumstance. Through the quad oval, bit of shuffling through that inside and top groove, but a bunch of drivers up there to assist Justin Erb. But we mentioned that nose damage, how much it's affecting him down the straight line. He is losing time and speed down the straightaway. Who will back out of line and take control of a tertiary lane? The answer, James Kunkel at the top side.
Oh, but he gets into the wall. Loses that momentum. Erb's able to find a hole in front of the 31. Colin Forrester. That's probably the best scenario that Erb can have right there, is that he was able to get to the inside. Now he can surge back up as he gets a squeeze here out of the exit of 2.
And they surge up high. More wiggles down the back straightaway. 3 cars on the outside. Take the race lead away. Brandon Banks at the top spot. Sanchez's teammate behind, and Curtis Kelly, the 3rd car there. 6 laps to go.
And the guys that set back, they were outside the top 10 for most of this race. Weren't even a factor in any of the stages. Brandon Banks and Joe Sanchez take over the top 2 spots in the closing laps. 5 to go very soon.
But so much can change in the matter of 1 lap here at Atlanta. Give or take 5 that will be left when they cross the start-finish line. Car in the wall, it's Dustin Reeves at the back, but we will stay green. Does Kunkel and Progar, do they make a move here in these waning laps?
I wouldn't step out just yet.
Progar is turned sideways. He saves it.
Hold on to it. Hold on to it.
What a save by Chris Progar. We are still green flag racing.
He's got a long way to go, but he's got the car back under control, and that inside is not very organized. Unfortunately for him, he picks up a little bit of damage. He's stuck in the middle. He needs to get Erb or somebody to push on the back of that 7.
He needs space to find either on the bottom or the top. If he wants to escape contact, he bunches up Austin Reedy and Lawson Peel. Reedy gets shuffled out of line. He'll save the race car, but at the cost of all of the track position. Up front, Brandon Banks leads a single line train to the final 3 laps from Atlanta. And here comes Kunkel up high.
Too early there for the 45. I wouldn't try that until maybe 2 to go. Nobody's going to go with him. He gets shuffled out. That's too early.
He's going to find help, but it may come too late for the M&M's machine. Chris Progar, it's way out of line. He'll be at the back of this group. Chris Shoemaker in the 4 car. Well, he's up here now in 3rd. Garrett Brown and Lawson Peel trying to help the effort of James Kunkel at the back of the field. The man who had the win robbed away from him in the opening race of Season 6 here at Atlanta Motor Speedway when they gave the win to Curtis Kelly. Now Colin Forrester, the top man on the outside. They wiggle more in turn 1. 3 laps to go.
Garrett Brown just went for a ride through 1 and 2. Lost a lot of ground. He was on the surge there. He's gotten aggressive for the first time probably all race. He's been outside looking in, and now he's in a scenario where he could get a top 10 finish.
And this is coming down to the final 3 miles from Atlanta Motor Speedway.
The 55
Joe
across the
Sanchez
nose.
is turned in front of the field. He'll hold on to the Ally
in the
Chevrolet,
world?
and he's in the middle 3 wide. But the problem is his teammate Brandon Banks is all by himself.
How are they still green, Kenneth?
And now he collects with Charles Stevens. He'll be down low. They'll try to sort themselves out. James Kunkel's turn. Yellow flag is out. Ray Rogers, Jesse Whittington among those in it. And for the first time in Atlanta, we are heading to overtime in the Sunoco Cup Series.
We almost got to the white flag, Kenneth. We almost made it. They tried for an entire lap to wreck these things. Wow.
That was high energy until it wasn't. James Kunkel on the outside just gets tagged along in this one. And this is where there's no mercy, right? You are pushing at your hardest. You do not care. You are not lifting. And even then, they stacked it up behind him. Garrett Brown, Lawson Peel getting a touch of the outside wall, but this is where it all begins. You'll see that Ally Chevrolet in the middle of Joe Sanchez and into Charles Stevens, and as they bring themselves up the racetrack, that's where Stevens gets into Swavely, who gets into Kunkel, and that's the domino effect.
Just want to get back, though, and look at this save. Let's go on board with Sanchez. This is through the quad oval where he gets tagged a little bit. Right here. And that was a good save. And heads up move by everybody that just swarms in. It's utter chaos behind. You see Garrett Brown gets shot sideways. I think Peel gets a piece of that. And then it's back down the backstretch where it happens again. It's all just wash, rinse, repeat. I think Sanchez didn't realize that Stevens was to the inside that close, and chain reaction just behind him.
When you try to fit 4 cars here at Atlanta, side by side, well, it doesn't work that well, especially at 160 miles an hour plus. Look from Ray Rogers, the Florida native. And he also nowhere to go in this one.
Kunkel gets the worst end of that. Whittington gets another one. I want to go on board with the driver, the 16. This is a little bit further back before the incident with Sanchez through the quad oval, but I'm curious to see who got into the 16 car here into the entry of 1, because he hit the wall hard.
So it's Justin Erb, Lawson Peel, and Garrett Brown. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Justin Erb, who tags Peel, who goes up the racetrack into Brown, and
we stay green from that too. How?
Well, none of them went around. Simple as that. None of them went sideways. It took maybe half a lap later for the crash to officially happen and ignite the yellow flag. So we will bunch them up and get into our first of 3 potential overtime restarts from Hampton, Georgia. So here's how it all will go down. We'll have this first green-white checkered attempt with 2 laps to go. The field will try and finish this race under green. However, if we do get a yellow flag before the white flag is thrown, we will double them up and do it again. We have 3 opportunities to do that. And if we end the final attempt at overtime under yellow before the white flag is thrown, whoever is the leader at that time of the yellow will be the winner. However, if the leader does catch the white flag and no caution is thrown beforehand, we are racing it to the stripe no matter what. Brandon Banks in search of his first win since Dover of April of 2023. Curtis Kelly, one of the former winners here at Atlanta, looking to become the first repeat winner at this super speedway configuration. Chris Shoemaker, a playoff hopeful first, could be a playoff winner now if he's able to get it done. Colin Forrester also has a shot at locking in to the round of 12. One of the strongest cars all night long. How does it end? In overtime attempt number 1. Green flag from Atlanta.
I see it already here. The 31 is not up to power. And if Curtis Kelly wants to get to the front, he needs somebody else behind him here.
He needs a ton of help, and it has to come in the form of his teammate, or else their chance at a race win may be busted. Brandon Banks leads the field out of turn 4, and we will have this race end officially under green. White flag in the air from Atlanta Motor Speedway.
You gotta hold on to it here. They're already door checking. I don't see any moves coming from the 4. He might go to the inside here. He will.
Let's
Shoemaker.
go. Here comes Shoemaker down low. We are 3 wide. Brandon Banks and Curtis Kelly making it happen on the high side. Kelly with the push from his teammate Forrester. They wreck behind, and out of turn 4, Curtis Kelly. Welcome to the round of 12.
Shoemaker moved down to the bottom, but I think that was all part of the plan. Colin Forrester salvages that car for second place, and Brad Fulham with a top 3 on the outside.
And despite all the odds, Fast Banana Racing ends up as the top team from Atlanta. Curtis Kelly with a 3-wide move in 3 and 4. And just for the 3rd time in his Sunoco Cup career, Curtis Kelly is the man to beat, and his teammate Colin Forrester makes it happen.
There's a big wreck back there with Whittington and Swavely. I gotta go back one more time and look at that. It looked like Whittington just got sent to the outside wall. See the 4, he goes down there, and I think maybe the 84 Stevens gets sideways here. Nope, it's just Whittington, and I think they bad push through 3 and 4.
And that is a huge crash. One car up on the outside wall. There is Charles Stevens, strong all night long. Comes away with an 8th place finish, but with a torn up race car. That's where he passes Chris Shoemaker, goes hard into the wall. The hood flap goes up, so does the rest of the hood with it. But Curtis Kelly celebrates tonight from Atlanta Motor Speedway and brings you tonight's Sunoco winning moment. More high-performance engines rely on Sunoco race fuels than all others combined, and for over 50 years, Sunoco has been powering top drivers around the world with high-quality fuels they can trust to power them to the checkered flag. Sunoco, fueling victories from track to tank. Let's take a breather. Let's take a moment to process what just happened as Curtis Kelly grabs his 3rd career Sunoco Cup win. We will take a short break, but on the other side, post-race coverage from a hectic race here at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
What got into you? At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller, yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There is Max Papis in the Ferrari. As great a race as Ferrari has ever had.
Steering wheel for me has always been a sensitive spot. There's a whole experience there that we're all trying to refine. Max Pappas, he asked me one day, he said, what can I do in a wheel? I said, well, with the new.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
And back live from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. 264 laps, 1 overtime attempt, and 1 winner. Curtis Kelly gets his 3rd career Sunoco Cup win, 2nd of the season, as he takes it all above everyone else. Colin Forrester, the Fast Banana teammate, helped Kelly get there. He comes away with a 2nd place finish despite everything that happened. Forrester, one of the strongest cars of the night. Brad Fulham gets his 1st podium finish of the season and only his 2nd top 10 of the campaign. Brandon Banks, fellow playoff driver, strong at the end, but has to live with 4th place at the end of this one. Justin Erb, through everything has been through, gets the top 5. Joe Sanchez behind in P6. Lawson Peel from several laps down to damaged to repaired. Everything has happened to the 2-time champ, but he comes away with 7th. 8th place to Charles Stevens, and one of the best performances we've seen out of him in his short career up until this moment. Chris Shoemaker in 9th, and Austin Reedy from spinning earlier to a top 10 at the end here at Atlanta.
Yeah, and I want to just shout out to Fast Banana for getting those cars back into the top 10. I believe Reedy was the only one that didn't have anything absolutely terrible happen to him tonight. And even then, Forrester and Kelly both outside the top 10, coming back to get the victory. Congrats to them. That's a Fast Banana sweep. James Kunkel is going to come home in 11th with Garrett Brown in 12th. Jesse Whittington, who had everything happen to him today, will get 13th with Shane Wyatt getting back on the lead lap. He'll salvage a 14th place finish. Justin Reeves 15th with Richard Swavely 16th. Chris Progar, who led a lot of laps here today, unfortunately back to 17th for him. Then you have Ray Rogers, Eddie Smith, who led a lot of laps, early disconnect for him, and Alex Huffman. So everyone from about 19th down was out of this race.
Alex Muscarella finishes this race in 21st. 22nd is Justin Winter. Sean Kalis back in 23rd. Austin Shoemaker to come home in 24th, 50 laps down. Then behind them, Zach Wilson, very fast VSPEED Ford Mustang until it all went wrong. He comes home 25th. 26th to another strong car this evening, Wyatt Brackett, that got torn up late. Bill Schoonover is 27th. Chuck Feltz for Poman Motorsports is 28th. Dakota Curtis, the league owner, is 29th. Stephen Harlow, the rookie, tucked out of this race early. 30th place is where he ends up. 31st for Kip Easley. 32nd to Race Teams, Casey Knighton. Aaron Adcock, Talladega winner from last season, ends up 33rd. And Steven Stempian, involved in the first incident of the night, the playoff leader, involved in the first crash, and he is 34th, bringing up the rear of tonight's field. After 14 cautions, 1 green-white checkered attempt, and a lot of nervous waiting to see who would cross the checkered flag first, it ends up being Curtis Kelly. And Curtis, it's your 2nd win here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. This one very much different from the last time you took victory lane here, but tell us, what does it mean to get this win in this way, given all that went down in this chaotic race?
Doing it around the outside with Colin behind me pushing on the last lap like that against somebody like Banks, it was a fun way to finish a race. That felt good. It was a very hectic race. It kind of felt like a race of survival at points, but we got caught up in a few things. Didn't get the worst damage, luckily, and were able to repair it, get back out there, and just take advantage of the chaos that kind of happened at the end there and get ourselves in a good position.
It just appeared to be a storybook ending with you and Forrester surging on the high side, 3 wide as the field wrecked behind, but you and your teammate were able to make it work. And just a demonstration of the relentlessness of Fast Banana Racing. What can you say about the motivation with the team? how strong you guys were tonight, and even despite the odds midway through the race, how you were all able to rebound and get back in this race to ultimately get a 1-2.
Oh, we really all try and work hard at the speedways as a team, not trying to leave each other out too much and try and make sure we all get up there when we can. It helps a lot having teammates that work with you out there at a track like this. Atlanta especially, it's so hard to make something happen that you really need friends out there. But just to be able to bring home a good finish for the team like that after some of the chaos that we went through, we were started off really strong, me and Colin leading a good chunk of the first stage there together. And just had some chaos happen. Reedy, I think, bounced back to a decent finish in the end. Not too bad, but just sad to see Wyatt's computer, unfortunately. That's what happened. His screen went black on him, and he ended up hitting the outside wall, I think, and causing that big one.
Well, regardless, it was a wild one. You end up surviving, and most importantly, your championship pursuit continues. You are locked in to the round of 12. And after Richmond, you won't have to worry about, points racing or all that, because you will be locked in for the round at Watkins Glen at Michigan. So how much does that mean for you to get this golden ticket in the playoff opener and not have to worry about what could be another wild one at Richmond?
Yeah, you come to a track like Atlanta and you tell yourself a top 12 finish is a good day when you're playoff racing, because you just don't want to get caught out and finish P30 or something here. So to get the golden ticket of all things after just hoping for a decent points finish is the best thing we could have hoped for. Really looking forward to Watkins Glen at the end of the round. Wasn't really looking forward to Richmond, so I'm glad I don't have to stress about that too much. It's not my favorite track with the current combination of tires and setups they have going on, but it's a good round. We got a fun round coming up next with Michigan, Talladega, and I forget what else, but looking forward to the rest of the playoffs. I think we got a good shot to make the final.
You were right in the middle of the playoff standings going into tonight. You were +5 with your win at Nashville Superspeedway this year, and you were directly in the middle, 8th place in the standings. Now you're number 1. You're the man to beat going into the rest of this round and heading into the rest of these playoffs. You've got the upper hand for right now, but on behalf of this win here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, who makes it happen for you behind the scenes?
Colin Forrester, learned a lot from him. Happy to have him push me from behind, and just Reedy and Wyatt on the team supporting us all the time. And the league itself, it's been a great place to learn and race. Sad it's going away, but happy to finish out the season here.
Well, Curtis, I know that you didn't have to go through the emotional roller coaster like you did the last time. You took a win here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. This time it's full exhilaration on this last lap pass for the win. Curtis, on behalf of all of us at VSPEED, congratulations on the W. You are welcomed into the round of 12 with open arms, and we'll see you at Richmond in 2 weeks' time.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
That is Curtis Kelly, the man at the checkered flag, first after one overtime attempt and 264 laps. But it was a team effort. Bradley Cooper, the man behind, to finish second. One of the strongest drivers all night long in Colin Forrester.
Yeah, and Colin, I gotta say, with the damage you had on that machine, it's a wonder. He said it's raining tacos. I think it's raining on everybody else. You somehow put that car in position to push your teammate. I thought for sure that it was over. You guys controlled all the stages and got the win, but how did it feel to just take what was left of that car and be able to do what you did?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I didn't realize how much damage I had there at the end, just now looking at it. Had a lot of damage in the rear, had a lot of damage in the front, so I don't even really know how it kept up, to be honest, but I just got a pretty good push there on the back stretch and was just able to get the curse. So I was yelling at them to go to the high side because I realized they were side drafting the crap out of each other and weren't going to have time to block it. And I'm really glad I didn't turn them because I basically didn't lift when I was behind them there on top of 3 and 4. So yeah, I don't know how the car pushed so well, but I guess because my nose was really flat. So yeah, I don't know. It was a great race. We always do well in the stages at any plate track. We always do super well, but stuff just comes together at the end that wipes us out or takes us out up front, and we finally got one here at Super Speedway. I haven't got one here all season. But yeah, it's just super happy to get second place and pushed Curtis to the win. I don't think it could have gone much better besides obviously me being in victory lane, but it was a great team day and great race overall.
Well, Colin, I'm guilty now of looking at all the statistics. Kenneth Bueno has taught me a lot on that. And coming into tonight, your average finish at this track was 35th, and pretty much overall at the plate tracks, you've had bad luck. Coming into this race, was that crossing your mind, or do you just kind of reset every week when you come into these things?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's super speedways. Odds are high that there's going to be a wreck. It's just a matter of where you are and how you can avoid it, and sometimes people around you. But I mean, I made some mistakes tonight. I mean, I made that stupid 3-wide move on Garrett, and I'm not sure who was below me, and then just kind of like moved my wheel a little bit, and then just got loose and hooked it right. So I feel super bad about that. But I definitely made a lot of mistakes tonight. But I mean, we got through it. Obviously, I know I got wrecked here. I won the pole in my first ever race in this league here, and got wrecked early on. I wrecked a lot in this track, definitely, but I feel like this is my best super speedway track. I just happen to get caught up and stuff. But I mean, I lead a lot of the laps here always. We try and lead every lap we can. I mean, I raced another super speedway league quite a bit. That only runs super speedway, so it's taught me being at the front is always the safest place. But sometimes luck is not on your side, and tonight it was half and half, but it was on my side there at the end, just missing some of the bigger wrecks and somehow scraping that car to a P2 and somehow having enough speed to push Curtis there to the win, and just super happy for the team.
Well, Colin, with that, I know that you come into this race a little bit outside looking in. The later half of your regular season didn't quite go as you wanted, but you still put all four of the Fast Banana drivers into the playoffs. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out before we let you go?
Of course, Curtis for getting the win, doing a great job tonight, especially with our push-in. Wyatt, I know he had, unfortunately, computer problems. I had the same thing happen earlier in the race on that first caution where Stympian got wrecked, so I don't know if I had any deal in that, but sorry to him. As well as Reedy, he was leading there pretty late, went up to make a block, and I don't know what happened from there. I know he got turned, but I don't know if it was just a bad bump or what. But also shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast every week. You do a great job. Shout out to everyone in the league for having me. Dakota, Dustin, they do a great job. Sad to see the league go after the season, but I'm sure there'll be future endeavors around it with these people. Everybody races good every night. And just thank you to everyone for watching, and thank you guys again.
Colin Forrester, second place here tonight, pushes and salvages the day after getting caught up with what probably felt like everything here tonight. He'll come home P2. Appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate it, sir.
That finally brings us to Brad Fulham. And Kenneth Bueno has caught up with him, the last guy here in the camera chat as well.
And for the first time this season, it is a podium for you, Mr. Fulham. A wild season up until now, a wild race at Atlanta. I'm sure nobody saw this race coming the way it did, but you happened to survive and be there at the right time, right place. What does it mean to get a podium here after everything that went down? And you've got a banner back there, Atlanta Motor Speedway. It seems like this track is dear to you in some shape or form. What does it mean to get a third place here tonight?
Yeah, it was nice. It would have been nice if I'd have picked up a third place maybe a month and a half ago or so before the playoffs, but it's nice to be up here for the first time this season.
And with everything that went down, you know, just like a short track race with all the cautions that come out, a super speedway like Atlanta and this race may just fall in that same category of it's not about the skill of the driver sometimes. It more comes down to the mentality of the driver, how relentless they are to be on the track, to stay there, and to not give up, given everything. And, you know, like you and a lot of others, you know, involved in incidents, got some hits here and there, but still pushing forward. How were you able to keep yourself mentally ready in this race despite everything that happened over the race?
It certainly was a war of attrition, wasn't it? So there's a lot of guys that certainly persevered to sort of make their way through, and I made a few mistakes. There's a few people I owe some apologies to after tonight, but my car was never really damaged. I think I only took about 27 seconds damage at the worst, so I felt pretty good. And then that last restart, I forget where I started, but just kind of poked for the holes and it worked out. I don't really know what else to say with that.
You know, it's super speedway racing. It happens all at once and then not at all. It's a crazy way to run here at Atlanta Motor Speedway given this reconfiguration. But, you know, you're not one of the playoff drivers, but you're still running here in the Sunoco Cup Series each and every week. You know, we've appreciated having you over the last several years in this series. You've got only a couple races to go in this last stretch for the Sunoco Cup Series as a league. So what do you see that maybe benefits you, or any tracks that you look forward to seeing in the next several weeks?
Good question. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure off the top of my head which tracks we have on the schedule here. I just have a good time coming out with these guys every week, and you know, Zach and Justin, I have a good time with the team, and everybody here. You guys do a great job broadcasting. So wherever we race, I'm gonna have a good time, and hopefully I get as lucky as I did today.
And we have a good time having you out on track to cover you each and every week, or in this series, sometimes every other week for Sunoco action. Brad, on behalf of all of us at VSPEED, a huge congratulations on this third place finish after everything that went down here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But before you let you go, who do you got to thank for making this all possible?
I think probably all the same people, the guys who put on the league. You know, Dustin and Dakota do a great job of keeping it running. Have done a great job building it up to what it is. So it's you know, it's too bad we're down to the last few races of the league. You guys are doing a great job broadcasting, and just everybody comes out and makes it a good time every week. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Brad, we certainly appreciate the time. On behalf of all of us at the broadcast team, congratulations on the podium, and looking forward to see you and the rest of the field take on Richmond Raceway next week.
Thank you.
So I'm going to correct myself there. I said 2 weeks ago, a little while ago, but it is next week that we'll go racing at Richmond. We'll talk about that in just several moments. That was Brad Fulham. Car number 19 ends up third place after starting 33rd tonight. He is one of the several guys in the top 10 that started 30th or worse, alongside Lawson Peel and Charles Stevens. So I think that sums up one thing, Bradley, is that this race didn't matter with track position all that much. You were either at the front, in the middle, or at the back at any given point in this race because of the crashes, because of the cautions, how they fell, and everything in between. It was everything that Atlanta promises as a super speedway race, but we got a classic finish on the last lap with Curtis Kelly getting his second win of the campaign.
Yeah, this race was attrition at its best, and if you were able to survive, or maybe didn't come out unscathed, but you were able to salvage the day, you know, not stopping. Prime example, Joe Sanchez, Lawson Peel, those two come back and get a top 10 out of this. You know, Austin Reedy, who had problems. There's so many guys out here, and Justin Erb had damage for the last probably 40 laps of this race. So just no quit. That's what you got to have here in the playoffs. Anytime you can get a spot, you got to stay out there and go for it.
And as we were counting it under the break, Bradley, 8 of the top 10 playoff drivers. So we were pointing that narrative all night long that the playoff drivers were struggling. They were all involved in the crashes, but it looked like both of them stayed up in this race and didn't get involved in crashes hard enough to take them out of contention. So top 10s for all of them. They will enjoy that. But we don't know just how shaken up that playoff grid will be come Richmond Raceway. Will be our first cutoff race of these 2024 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. We will cut off drivers every 2 races, so we will decide the 12 that will advance into the next round at Watkins Glen and Michigan International Speedway. Another reminder that we do not take a week off. We'll be racing next Sunday, September 15th. You can catch all of the action at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the youtube.com/VSPEED channel. Bradley and I will be alongside for all of the coverage to give you all of the details ahead of that playoff race. We've got one driver locked in, Curtis Kelly. The 11 others have to fight through points and keep themselves alive, and that is never guaranteed, especially at a short track where things get so intimate. Bradley, what are your thoughts about Richmond just as a venue, how we'll see it as a cutoff race this time?
Well, it can go one of two ways. It can be one of those very caution-filled races, or it can be a place where we spread out and we start playing fuel strategy. I've seen it go both ways. It's kind of similar to Iowa, that you can end up in a strategy gamble, and with the stage racing, you're going to see guys maybe short pit for track position and then stay out. during maybe the first caution or two to gain spots. It's going to be all over the place. Hope you guys are able to tune in there, as we'll be flag to flag for the remainder of the season.
And that will be our first and only short track race of these playoffs. Ahead of us, we've got a road course, a 2-mile D-shaped oval, a 2.66 mile beast in Talladega as a super speedway, then 2.5 miles to close out the season, and that is it. Still a long way to go. So Atlanta crossed off, Curtis Kelly the winner, and there's the rest of the schedule as it follows. That's, again, all the things highlighted in yellow: Richmond, Watkins Glen, Michigan, Talladega, Las Vegas, and Homestead, Miami. We will cut off drivers every 2 races, so Richmond will be the round of 12 cutoff, then the round of 8 cutoff at the Irish Hills at Michigan, and then we'll decide who advances to the championship for Las Vegas, and then those 4 will fight for the title down south at Homestead, Miami. So that will do it for us here at VSPEED. A long night, a long race, but Curtis Kelly celebrating into the night sky here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He captures his 3rd career Sunoco Cup Series victory. For Dakota Curtis and the entire admin team at the Sunoco Cup Series for making all of this possible, for Adam Baker at VSPEED for his hard work, and for our broadcast crew tonight, my colleague in the booth, Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying good night from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Curtis Kelly locked into the round of 12. Who gets in, who gets out, we'll find out next Sunday at Richmond Raceway.